Okay, we're going to go live now, guys. All right, welcome back. We are COMP397, and it's in the winter 2021 semester, and it's week 5, part 1 of our broadcast. I'm going to start talking about responsive UI. But before we get there, let's look at where we are and what's happening. So again, this week or last week we did Lab 4. Assignment 1, Part 3 was released last week. And then we did Lab 4. We talked about a bunch of stuff, the camera, and we talked about many things about the camera. Some things that we, kind of discussed, but we did a mini map is what we kind of put together. And we ended up doing a mini map that had different layers. Okay, so that's what we kind of did last week. This week, we're going to see if we have if we have time. I'm going to enhance the mini map with my virtual camera. So to basically add using something called Cinemachine, which is making the mini map scroll smoothly. That's what we can do there. And there's also I'm going to talk about Unity UI, how to do UI properly in Unity. We're going to build a couple of assets as well as start developing a health system with health bars. That's what we're doing today. So that's the plan. I just wanted to remind you that assignment 1, part 3 has been released and is due week 7. So it says Lab 5 was normally supposed to be due this Saturday, but we're going to make it that a couple things for Lab 5. One, it's going to be due next Wednesday. So instead of this Saturday, it's going to be due next Wednesday to give you guys a chance to get it done. And it's also going to be a bonus, right? Which is, so for people who haven't had a chance to catch up, it's going to be worth the bonus as opposed to something that you need to do. That means it's going to add on to your mark as opposed to count towards your mark. So if you don't do this lab 5, then you don't lose anything. But if you do this lab, then it actually counts towards your extra marks. Okay, so that's how it works. So it'll give you an extra 1% or something like that if you get it done. Next week, we're going to focus on animation with Mixamo, and which is an online character creator, and making some simple animations with humanoid characters, particle effects, and post-processing. That's all next week. But this week, we're doing Unity UI and that kind of stuff. And so we're here at week 5, and we're marching towards week 7. Assignment 1, part 3, you've got a couple of weeks to get this one done. This one is due in March, and if you look at the due date, so if I'm just looking at the timeline here as an example, we're sitting at week 5. Week 6 is next week, right? That would be the 28th. Week 7 will be the following week, and I'm making it due on the 7th. So you'll have until March 7th to do assignment 1, part 3, which gives us quite a bit of time between assignment releases. Remember that when you do assignment 1, part 3, most of everything that you need to do for assignment 1, part 3 should be complete. And that means like everything in the first part, the things that we planned for your assignment to actually produce your game for WebGL should be pretty much done by week 7. So that means everything that you need, it'll be complete. And I've given you all the details inside of your assignment document. So please make sure you look at that if you haven't had a chance to do that already. Okay, so that is the outline. Some people had some issues. They've been emailing me about GitHub issues this week. They couldn't, submit stuff last week during the assignment window, which was on Sunday. I'm going to open up that window again, give you guys a chance to resubmit. And I'm going to talk about the most common problems with GitHub. And the biggest problems with GitHub are merging, right? That's a real issue. So this is assignment 1, part 2 is what we're talking about. So I'm going to open this up until this Sunday. So it'll give you a couple of days to, if you haven't had a chance to submit. There's people that didn't submit. People sent me their submissions as an example. They sent me their submissions with an email. I'm not going to accept submissions through email, but we're just going to basically move, even though the due date I made it was on Tuesday, people still didn't submit stuff. So we're just gonna open it up until, let's go back there. We're gonna open it up, the end date, until Sunday. So even though you'll be late to submit, your due date will be on Sunday. The last chance you'll be able to submit assignment 1 part 2 will now be on Sunday. So it'll still be open. It'll be late, but it'll be open and waiting for you to submit by Sunday. So make sure you do that. So what are the problems with GitHub? Some people have problems with submission. Some people say, well, I'm uploading my zip folder, it's too large. The only way your zip folder is too large, guys, is if you're giving me your library folder. So one thing you can do to reduce your size, and let's, by the way, while we're talking, let us bring up your Lab 5 starter. Lab 5 starter is just Lab 4 or Lesson 4. We're going to start from there. So let's download this in preparation for what we're doing. So if you notice up on eCentennial, right, up on eCentennial, you're going to have under content, if you scroll down, you're going to see this area that says Lab 5 starter. Lab 5 starter is just Lesson 4A. So I'm going to download this just like you. If I download the zip file, it's going to put it inside my downloads folder, and I'm gonna take my zip file from my downloads folder. I'm going to show you my desktop. On my desktop, this is what we would be looking. Notice I keep doing that. So I started with 1 for 2, for 2 for 3, for 3 for 4. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to remove these ones because I don't need them anymore. I'm just going to take assignment 4 or week 4, the stuff I got from week 4, and I'm going to drag and drop it into here. So this is week 4. And I'm going to decompress it. So again, I'm going to use 7-zip to do it, and then I'm going to kind of put it in there. So then this is 4A main. We're just going to rename this to 5A, because this is the one we'll be working with today. And that's what I want you guys to do. 5A. Let's get rid of this now, so I don't need it anymore. And notice when I download something from GitHub, there's no library, right? But if I look at my previous code that I had, right, 4A, I have a library folder. Guys, the library folder is 99% of where your files are sitting. The other 99% is in the builds folder. I don't want you to give me builds, and I don't want you to give me your library folder. You can delete these two safely, and it's not a problem when you upload your zip archive. Right? Why? Because library gets generated again, and builds is just your build for your stuff. Notice that the size of my build folder is 22 megs, right? Just this. And then if I look at my library, the size of my library is 451 megs. Guys, don't give me your library. That's insane. Even if you zip this up properly, it's going to be crazy. So let me show you what I do. And by the way, the Git folder itself, if I hover over, is 15 megs. Right? So again, I don't need your library, I don't need your builds, and I don't need your Git folder. Why? Because your Git folder has a bunch of stuff there, right? So what I could do is if I was going to give you everything from lesson, let's say the previous lesson, I can get rid of this, this, and this. Those 3 folders, I can just get rid of them, delete. I'll show you how this looks, right? And if I was to do that, those 3 folders, Git folder, builds folder, and library folder, if I just get rid of all those things, then you'd have this. And if I look at how big this is now, it's not 451 megs anymore. If I hover over this, right now it's 23 megs, guys, 23 megabytes. So this is what I need you guys to do when you put up your zip folder up online. Otherwise, take a look at 3A. If I look at 3A, which we're building on, it's 452 megs. 2A, it's 50 megs. 1D, it's 50 megs. So you see right where we went to 2, as an example, from 2 to 3, we went from 2 megs, or from, 50 megabytes to 450 megabytes. Why? We added additional, files in there. Once we add additional assets, then what ends up happening is our library grows. Our library holds all of our assets for our textures and everything else. So again, please do what I did when you upload things to GitHub, or sorry, to eCentennial. Before you do it with your project folder, right? It's like what I just did now. Look what I downloaded from GitHub. GitHub is only 23 megs. Even when I cleaned up 4A, it's about the same, right? Look at that. 4A and 5A. 5A is just me downloading it from GitHub. It's 23 megs. So here's a thing you can do for me as well. You can put your stuff up on GitHub, download the folder, right? And just give me that zip archive from GitHub. That's a perfect way of doing it, because when you put it up on GitHub, because of your gitignore file, right, what happens is it strips all that other stuff out. And so you have a very lean folder to put up on eCentennial. eCentennial is just a backup. The reason why I'm getting you guys to put your zip archive up is because just in case something fails on GitHub, let's say I can't access GitHub for some reason or another, I still have your backup on eCentennial where I can go and check out your files. Also, please do not upload any videos. A full video on GitHub or on eCentennial is crazy. If it's a 10-minute video, it could be 500 megabytes. Okay, I don't want you guys to upload videos, just the links to your videos. All right, so there's a lot of stuff like that. So please, if you're finding that your upload is blocked by eCentennial, there's a reason for it. It's because you're doing the wrong thing. Okay, that's one. The other people have problems with when it comes to GitHub is merging. So if I'm working with another person, there's a couple of ways to connect with somebody. So here I've got, Demario, and I've got some other people here, Dylan and Irvin and Isaac here online this week, right? And let's say, for example, I wanted to, could we upload our files again later? Yes, I made it possible, Xiaojing. I've opened it up until Sunday, so you can upload your files again, okay? So what I meant is, if you go up on, if let's suppose I want to share my project, right? So I want to make a new project. So instead of COMP397, blah, 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 let's make a new one, and for the new lab, right? So this is the new one that we're doing, okay? So again, I'm going to say COMP397 in the winter 2021 semester, and it's, again, week. I'm just going to look at how I've structured it. It's going to be lesson 5A. Okay, this is what it looks like. Notice it's private. I can make it public here as an example. I don't want to add anything else, and I just want to press enter so that way it creates my repository. Yay. Now I want to put up my project up online. A couple ways to do that. I can use Gitkraken like I've done before. Right, so I've shown you how to use Gitkraken to do that. This is the project that I want to put up, but this time I'm going to use command line. So again, I'm just going to use I'm opening up my command line, and I know that my project files now are up on my desktop, right? So what I can do is I can say cd, which is change directory, space, and I can drag and drop my new files, lesson 5A, into that. There we go. This is the way to do it. And remember that Git in GitHub, I talked about this earlier in the semester, there's a few commands. One of them is git init, which initializes your GitHub repository locally. So this does the repository initialization, all right? And if I look here, just to show you, if I look inside lesson 5A, you can see now I have this hidden.git folder. Okay, for the stuff I've got here. Next, after I've got my Git folder, I want to do git add dot. Git add dot adds all the current files to the GitHub repo, or the local GitHub repo. It actually adds you to the staging area. And the next part I want to do is git commit -m, and then some kind of message. Usually the convention is initial commit or first commit. That is the convention for doing this. Okay, so git commit. Commit is the friendly name. I'm going to create a snapshot for my files, and the name of my snapshot is the commit. This thing, initial commit. So this is the name of my snapshot. So then I'm putting that in, and I've named my snapshot as this commit is basically going to be associated with all these files. That's what's happening. Okay, so that is git commit. The next part that I want to do, so this is the first parts. The next part I want to do is I want to put this up on GitHub, and GitHub gives you a few lines of code to help you. The branch, adding a remote, we talked about what that is, which is a connection, as well as how to push everything to GitHub. So I'm going to grab these last 3 lines of code, and I'm going to go to my command line and right-click. And when I right-click in Windows, it actually types in everything for me. And if I press enter, the final thing, it'll push everything up to GitHub. Now, again, you can use any method that you want to put your stuff up to GitHub. You can use Gitkraken, you can use source tree, you can use command line like I just did. I've shown you different ways of doing it now. But what this does is it puts it up on GitHub. And now if you notice, my repository is set up. It says the only problem that I have is my README file is wrong. It says lesson 4A, but my lesson is 5A. Let's change it up online and update it. So I'll go here online. I can do stuff online too. And I can change this to 5A. Here's 5A. And I can commit changes online. And when I do that online, then now I have a problem, right? Now I'm 1 commit ahead. I have 2 commits online, but locally, if I do git log, locally I only have 1 commit, right? So what I need to do is, if I do a git fetch, what it does is says, hey, you know what? There is 1 commit that I have that's ahead. You got the, so my remote is ahead by 1 commit. That's what basically this is saying, right? When I do a git fetch, it kind of counts the number of objects, and the delta is 1. Delta 1 means that I'm actually 1 commit ahead online compared to what I am locally. So what I can do is I can do a git pull. And what git pull does is it pulls down the README file, the one I just made up here, it pulls it down locally. And if I just do a git status, then it says everything is up to date. You can also do, by the way, when I do a git fetch, if I did a git status after I did a git fetch, it would show that something is wrong. Let me show you this again. Let's say if I go back to README file and I changed this, I added something. So I said, I want to make this kind of a heading 1, and I want to say demo project for week 5. Okay, there it is. So I've made my change again to my README file, right? So again, I'm updating my README file. I can make a commit message online. I can say something like updated readme.md to include, you know, kind of a short description, Okay, let's say this is my commit message, right? And if I click commit changes, again, you can see now that it looks a little different online in my README file than it did before. It has this bigger message. Yay, awesome. So now what I want to do is, if I do the same thing, if I do git fetch, right, I see that there's a delta. And if I do git status, then it says your branch is behind the origin main by 1 commit and can be fast forwarded. Use git pull and update your local branch. It tells you that you're behind by 1. If I'm behind, guys, I cannot push again because they're not in synchrony, right? They have to be kind of synced up in order for me to be able to push. That means things I have locally are ahead of the remote branch. The remote branch cannot be ahead of me locally. If it's ahead, I got to pull first before I push. But if I pull and I've worked on some stuff, there's a chance that it's going to overwrite everything that I've done with the remote information. So again, I would have to do a git pull. I get the new README file, and then if I do a git status, you can see the difference between, here's my 1 commit. I was 1 commit behind. Now I'm in order. I'm all good, is what this says. Your branch is up to date with origin main. I'm in kind of in synchrony. All right, so that's how it works. That's how you can do stuff. If I want to add a collaborator, let's say I want to work with, I'm going to pick a random name here, Simon. Simon, are you there? Mr. Simon Gonzalez.
Yes, I am here.
Awesome, thank you. Can you give me your Git username, please?
My username.
Yeah, if you type it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's how it would work. Let's say, for example, thanks, Simon. Let's say, for example, I want to collaborate with Simon. Simon and I are going to work on this thing together. Let's suppose, right? Then I can go into settings, and when Simon, if you can copy your username into the chat, please, then I can get it. If I go into the settings of my COMP397 lesson 5A, and if I go into manage access, I'm going to put my password in. Thank you, Simon.
Okay. But it's together. Sorry.
It's okay. Do it again. Copy it in there again. If I go to manage access, then what I can do is I can invite teams or people, right? So Simon, if you can copy that one more time. And make sure it's whatever your username is up on GitHub that I want. Thank you. So I can take that his username and I can invite him. Okay, I can kind of go here and then see if I can find. Is this you?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so if I click on this, I can give Simon different kinds of access: read access, triage, right? As an example, or write access, all right, as well as other things. Maintain something. I can give him different kinds of access. I can even make him an admin for this repository. Let's give access to Simon, and we'll give him write access. If I give him write access, he can read and write. And I'm going to click add. When I do, Simon, you're going to get an email. All right. Did you get an email yet? It's going to say Tom invited you to. Okay. Now you need to respond to the email and accept. Let's see if you can accept that.
Okay, I already accepted.
Okay. If I refresh now that Simon's accepted, right, you can see that one day when I don't think you accepted yet because it says pending invite. You have to accept it.
I already did it.
Oh, there you are. Okay, so now you can see he's an outside collaborator. See that? Outside collaborator. Okay, Simon, this is your test now. Now live in front of everybody. I want you to go up to the repo online, all right? Inside of this repo, right? Lesson 5A. I want you to go up here now. You have access. And I want you to change the README file to say something like Simon is here. So just go here, change the README file to Simon is here, please. Go. I know, Mohammed, keep cheering Simon on. I just want him to change the repo. All right. Let me know when it's done, Simon.
Okay.
And if it is done, then look, hey, look, Simon is here. He did it, right? Notice that I have two contributors now to this repo. One of them is Simon, and the other one is me, right? Okay, now I'm behind because Simon made an update to my README file. He added something else, right? So the way I can check it, I got to pull it again, exactly. But let me see what happens now if I go there. So again, I got to swim to that repository, the folder. When I say swim, I mean I want to go there to lesson 5A. So I'm going to go CD and then my lesson 5A. This is important. Again, this is for everybody who's working together, right? And then when I'm here, I'm going to say git fetch, right? If I do a git fetch, it tells me that I have a problem. If I do a git status, it says your branch is behind the origin main by one commit and can be fast forwarded, just like last time. Now I can do a git pull, right? And then I've pulled everything together and I'm on track. If I do a git log, you can see that these are the statuses of each of my stuff. Look, here's Simon. Simon did he's the author and he did the last commit to the README file. All right, Simon and I will work together on this thing. Now let's say, for example, I don't want Simon to have access anymore. All right, thank you, Simon, for accessing. But let's say I want to take Simon's access away. It's the same, guys. You can always temporarily give access and go back. So thank you very much, Simon. He accessed stuff and gave it in. And if I go manage, right, I want to manage my access, right? I can do a bunch of stuff. First of all, you can see that I can remove access. So right now, if I go back to one day when it updates, come on, I can go to Simon. There's a little trash can next to Simon, and I can just say, thanks so much, Simon, from doing it. But now I don't want Simon to be a contributor anymore, let's just say, right? So you can manage access like that. It's not a terrible thing, guys, if you want to give temporary access to people or whatever. And the reason why you'd want to do this, I'm showing you this with Simon, is let's suppose you have an outside collaborator that wants to work with you on a small piece. You still want his work to be shown as an example. So if I go back to here, it's still going to show Simon's work. His work is there. He did README file, right, with our in our lab here that we're doing, right? But and you can see that there's two collaborators, but he has no access anymore to do. He can read it like everybody else because it's a public repo, but he can't write to it anymore. Okay. So that's the way you can do it. And if I was the GitHub director, the person who owned the repository, I can temporarily give access. We do some stuff and take it away. Now, chances are for you guys, if you're working as a team, if the person, like for example, your engineer, whoever it is, right, your software engineer, your lead software engineer, maybe that person is going to own the repository, and whoever owns the repository can manage access and can give access to the collaborators. Okay, let's start this now because I wanted to talk about this. This is a problem. Some people have problems with GitHub, and this is part of the reason, right? The other part of the reason is your repository, for whatever reason, did not include a gitignore file. If you don't include a gitignore file, then what happens is builds, unfortunately, and library get sent up to GitHub, my friends. If you try and send off a lot of files to GitHub, it may stop you because it also has a large file system access capacity issue. And what that means is you have to turn stuff on for you to put more things on GitHub. You can do it. It'll take like gigs of data. But if it's not a regular file, and or if you haven't put a gitignore file on your GitHub repository, that means everything is going to go up to GitHub. And that is a bad thing. Please don't do that. All right, let's start this thing and get going. So I'm going to go to Unity Hub. And I'm going to add my project now. So I'm going to go to my project. If I go to the proper files, and I'm going to go to COMP397 and lesson 5A. This is my project. I'm going to click select folder. It adds my project here to GitHub, to Unity Hub. I'm going to click act on this right now. Okay, now we're going to do something different when it comes to collaborating. And I need to show you the collaboration piece because some of you are having issues. Thanks, Simon. Simon, do you have another question or are you good? We had issues uploading project files on assignment Dropbox, but we posted the GitHub repo link. Do we need to re-upload? No, you're good, Dale. Thanks. Simon, go ahead. Are you okay?
So we always have to choose the Git in order to be able to get the build and the library folder.
If you put it up on GitHub, right? You're sharing it with your team, right? Your teammates. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, but remember what's happening is when I put it up on GitHub, right? Not only sharing it with them, but you're making a backup. Remember the 3 reasons to use GitHub are backup, I want to collaborate or share, right? And version control. Those are the 3 reasons I want to use GitHub, right? So that's why I'm making you do it. I'm making you do it so that way, you have access and nothing can happen. If something goes wrong, you can always go back to the previous version you uploaded on GitHub. So that's why I'm making you do it. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. Yeah. But on eCentennial, when you upload things, thank you, Simon. When you upload things on eCentennial, right, then you need to give me the zip archive. And there's 2 ways to do that. I can go to GitHub. Here's what we talked about. I can go to GitHub and I can download this zip archive now. And it's going to be very small. It's only going to be 23 megabytes or something like that, right? And then give me this one. Give me this one, right? Or if, like I said earlier, you can go in manually, right? If I want to do it manually, I can go to my the place where my folders are, right? So Let's go back to this again. I go back to this and I can just strip out the stuff that I don't need. I can, for example, in my project, I can go strip out Git library and builds. I can strip those things out and it'll be the same thing. So those are two options you have for reducing your file size on eCentennial. I'm going to give you a third way of doing it. Thank you. I'm going to give you a third way of collaborating with each other, and that is using something called Unity Collab. Okay, so this is a new thing, net new. Okay, Unity Collab. First, let's suppose I want to start my scene. By the way, if I download something from the internet, from GitHub, notice that I start an empty scene again. I don't want this. It says untitled. For you to get your scene back, just go into scenes and double click on the scene you want, for example, main. And now you have it again. Okay. So this is the crazy scene we made last week. Okay, with the two enemies. Okay. We're going to fix this scene up this week to make it look nice. So I want to collaborate again with somebody else, right? But I want to use Unity this time instead of what I did before. Well, what Unity does is, if you notice, there's a bunch of windows, right? One of them is it says collaborate. So notice there's a window on Unity and then it says collaborate. Let's click on that. When I do, it says, hey, that's cool. Welcome to Collaborate. Before starting, click the button below to set up a new or existing Unity project ID. For the project, return this window once it's set. Let's do that. So click Set Project ID. And then it gives me to Project Services, right? And it says select your organization. The organization is going to be your Unity username. Example, for me, it's going to be Tom, right? But I also have another one that I made called Centennial College. Here's my organization. I'm going to create my project ID for Centennial. All right. Now, what I can do is, once I've done that, okay, I've made my project ID, and here I can say Start Collab. Starting Collab, what it does is it allows me to put my project up on Unity Cloud, and I can do it for free, guys, for free. Okay. And the way it works is this. Notice there's a little link on the top right now. Okay, it's kind of funny to see. It's on up here, right? And these are all the files that I have here. And I can say that this is initial push, example, to Unity Cloud. Okay, that's what the initial push is, to Unity Cloud. I've already got this up on GitHub, right? Now I'm putting this up on the Unity Cloud. If I click publish, what this is going to do is going to take my whole project and push it up online. Now, you're like, so what? Right? Because it doesn't matter if I push it up on Collab or whatever. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at services, because what this does, right, is I want to invite a teammate. So here's notice it says Collab, and on the right here, there's little ellipses. It says, I want to invite a teammate. Okay, so now it's going to take me up to my developer.cloud.unity3d or whatever. It's going to log me in for this project. Okay, here's my project. And when it finishes, it's going to show me the users that are available to me to, to work on the project with me. Right now, it's just me. Okay, and notice it says Unity Teams Access. I'm the owner. I want to add somebody else. So I can search for somebody in my organization, right? Someone that I know by email. I can also add more seats. I can add up to 2 people, guys, for free. 2 people that you can do all this for free with Unity, right? Beyond that, beyond 2 people, you need to pay for Unity Teams. And Unity Teams costs $7 per person extra, beyond 2 people extra per month. You guys don't need to do that because you only have 3 people in your team. You can access this and share your project between the 3 of you for free. There's nothing to do, right? So I want to add somebody else. I'm just going to add somebody else randomly. Irvin, are you there? Let's see if I can add Irvin. Awesome. Okay, Irvin, what I need from you now is if can you tell me what your Unity ID is, and if you can post that inside of, and actually it's your Unity, the email that you use for Unity is what I need. If I can give you, if you can post that up on the chat for me. Whenever you're ready. So the email you use to subscribe to Unity, because you have to, all of us have to be, okay, thank you very much for that. I'm going to take his email here, okay, and I'm going to see if I can just go in here where it says add user or group. Let's see if I can do it this way. Sometimes you can. And I'm going to post his email address, right? And I'm going to click add, right? So I've just added him, and let's see if he has access to using it. So Irvin, whenever you have a chance, you need to respond to your access. Notice it says user. Tell me if you got an email right now, if you got an email or not. And if you do, then what you can do is you're going to see something different. Excellent. Now I want you to do this. I want you to open up your Unity Hub. Open up Unity Hub. And what it's going to do is it's going to have down here a thing that says refresh cloud projects. If you click on this refresh cloud projects, you're going to see this project, COMP397 W2021 lesson 5.8 as a cloud project now, where you can download it right through Unity Hub. And we can work together on stuff. All right? Do you see that in your Unity Hub? And sometimes what you need to do is actually close Unity Hub and refresh. Yeah, so try it out. If you click onto it, you'll be able to download it now. Now you need to have the same version of Unity as me to open it up. But now you're going to have the exact same thing I have. And this is new. So I can have 2 people additional to me. That's why I made you guys have teams of 3 guys. All right. I can have 2 people in addition to myself working on a project for Unity for free, right? And that means that you guys can make little teams and you can collaborate online. So why am I telling you this? Because the beautiful thing about Unity Collab, and Irvin, what I want you to do is, have you opened it up yet in your side? I'm not sure if you have, if you've opened it up on your end. Got it open, awesome. All right, now when you open it up, and I want you to go to your main scene here, okay, your main scene. And here's what I want you to do, Irvin. I want you to go to the player, right, where it says the player in the main scene, and I want you to rename the player to Irvin for me, okay? Rename the player to Irvin. And when you're done, I want you to, and the way to do that is, once you do it, you need to push your changes up to the cloud, right? So you change your Irvin, your player name to Irvin, and then you're going to push everything up to the cloud. You're going to go to the Collaborate tab and push it. Still importing. Okay. And when he does, okay, I can decide whether I want to pull it. I'm going to see a little symbol up here that's going to show me that I can pull from Irvin's push. He's going to push it up to the cloud, and I can pull it right in here in Unity. Okay? Guys, this is truly the preferred method, right, that I want to use. Notice that, by the way, I have a bunch of additional things here, right? A bunch of additional things that I can do with Unity. Analytics, I can do things like collaborate, in-app purchasing, a bunch of other things we can do with Unity. It gives you a lot of things off the top. No, this is the beautiful thing, right? If you guys, the great thing about working with Unity Collab is you can work together, and whoever the software engineer is, after everyone is pushed up to cloud and the software engineer downloads it to his project, he can be the only, or she can be the only person to push things up to GitHub. You see? You can collaborate on Unity like you're working together, and then you have one project you push on GitHub. Just one. The rest of the time you're collaborating on Unity. That is a really great workflow, and I find that that will cut down on a lot of your issues. Irvin, were you able to do it yet? I don't see the little symbol that says there's something to pull. It says I'm up to date. Well, I'm going to keep working while Irvin is doing that because I got some stuff happening, right? First of all, I'm going to run my project and see what I got. Okay, just finished now. I'll wait for you. So right now what's happening is, I can jump on here as an example, and I can jump on my file. You can see that these guys are trying to find me, but really there's no way for them to get on to these blocks, and they don't know how to do anything right now, right? One thing we did was when last day, all right, is if I stop this, and if I look at the project, right, I have a tiles folder. Here's my tiles folder, game object, which is containing all the other tiles. And if I click on each of the tiles and I go to navigation, you can see that I've pre-baked all the tiles, right? And pre-baking, that's pretty good, and I've got these tiles that were baked for me. But what if I want to procedurally generate or randomly generate these tiles? Okay, so Irvin's asking, what do I rename it again? I just want you to go and rename the player to your name, Irvin. Just click on there and go to inspector and change that name to Irvin and then push it up. So what I mean is all these tiles that I have here right now, right? I bake this by hand, and I don't have to bake this by hand. I can bake it in another way than what I've done here, okay? But that's not the focus of this. Oh, look, hey, there's Irvin. Look what he did. I've got this little guy he's working on. It says unpublished changes. You need to publish it, Irvin. It showed me that he's doing something now. Look, he's publishing something inside of here. All right, so what I want you to do now is if you click this little link there, see that? See that little thing there that shows, it's almost like a little arrow that says I have to do something. If I click there now, right, notice on the right, it says some revisions have been published to the server. Please sync to get the latest changes. So if I click sync, it's going to say that I'm going to pull down stuff, and it's asking me to reload my scene. Why? He's made changes to the scene. Watch, reload. And now the player is called Irvin. He did it. We worked together. Yay! Awesome, Irvin. Thank you for that. Hey, let's suppose I don't want Irvin to work with me anymore on this, right? No problem. I can go back up like we did on the Unity dashboard, and I can go to Irvin and I can remove him, right? Not a problem. And now he doesn't have access anymore. Okay, that's how it goes. And when I do that, if I go back to this, right, I still can do stuff and push things up on Unity Hub, but Irvin can't do anything anymore. Thanks, Irvin. That was just a demonstration of how we can do stuff together in Unity Hub. All right, I'm going to change this back to player. And now that I've done that, notice that there's a blue push because I've changed it back. I'll say, pushed, so changed player name again. Okay, that's my changes, and I can publish. Now, what does this look like when I push it up on Unity? Does it actually show anything? Well, remember, when I do Unity, I've got a file, save, I've got a file, save project, right? And then I got to close down Unity to put it up on GitHub. And when I do that, let's pull up that command prompt again, right? So here's my command prompt. And what I want to do is I want to cd space. I want to go back to that same repository like I did before, right? And I want to say git add dot. This is something new. This is separate than the Unity Cloud. I'll just call it, updated project settings. We didn't really do anything. We just updated project settings. And then git push. Let's see what happens here. Do you think I would see Irvin's name on my project? What do you think? So I'm gonna come up here and see, the guys up online here and the girls. What do I see? Do you think I'll see Irvin's name up here or not? What do you think? Well, if I refresh, I still only see me and Simon as collaborators. Why? Because, my friends, the stuff that's happening is up on Unity Hub. And Unity Hub and GitHub have nothing to do with each other, right? I still want you to do GitHub because the person who's the lead software engineer should push things up from GitHub or from Git to GitHub, so that way we have some shared resources. This is your repo, right? This is your backup, right? This is your collaboration that you're doing with other people, right? But when you're collaborating with Unity, all you really need to do in the project is just use Unity Collab. And Unity Collab takes care of a lot of problems when you're working together. So that's why I recommend you do it. Different cloud, yeah, all together. All right, cool. So that's good. And again, you can see that it's going to go up, and I'm still using 5A, but Collaborate is here. I got nothing, no other changes to do, and I'm good to go. All right, let's do part 2. So that was part 1. Part 1, and this is kind of something that I didn't plan on doing, but I'm responding to people who had problems. So part 1 was for Lab 5, which is kind of demonstrated GitHub, Git and GitHub again with command line. That's what I did. And I also demonstrated Unity Collab, okay, which is amazing. It's an amazing tool that we did. Okay, one thing is that when I run the project, right now, and I'm running it here, I always have my mini map, and this is cool and all that stuff. But you know what? It takes up a large portion of my desktop space, right here. I don't always want to see this thing, right? These guys are going to push me off into oblivion, and I'm going to die, right, forever. I don't want, first of all, there's 2 things I don't want. One is I don't want to see these markers. So last week I kind of talked about how I can put markers on top of enemies so I can see them on the minimap. If I don't want to see the markers on the editor, I can just go to layers and turn the markers off. So I don't have to see. I can turn anything off I want, by the way. I can turn off the entire ground if I want to just see that on the editor. Any layer I can turn on and off, right? So the default layer, I can turn those things off. I can turn the transparent effects layer, the ignore raycast layer. All these layers I can turn on and off. Water, or even the user interface, I can turn that off too. All right, so that's what this does. I can turn off the enemies, and I can even turn off the player if I put a player layer in here. Okay. So let's just turn off the enemy marker. Any markers, I want to turn them off. But what I mean is when I run the game, right, what's happening right now is I'm getting this little mini map and I want to get rid of it, right? So I want a key to do this, and I'm going to make a little script for this. So inside of my scripts folder, I'm going to call, I have a player behavior script. Let's double click on player behavior. Again, I'm assuming that you're using my project. Okay. If I bring up the player behavior script under my update, remember that I'm using inputs from my jump and inputs from my horizontal and vertical axis if I want to move forward or back, right? Well, I can add additional inputs from my player. I can say that if input dot get key down, right? I want a specific key to do something. Input dot get key down, and I want key code, right? Sorry, I gotta wait for my resharpener. Come on. There we go. If I want keycode.m to do something, I can just literally do this. So if I press the M key down, then what I want to do is I want to toggle, that's what I want to do, the minimap on and off. That's what I want to do, right? How do I do that? Well, remember what the minimap is. Do I have access to do that with my player right now? Well, right now, no. And let's do some additional things in the player behavior. So in the top where it says maximum speed, gravity, and jump height, this part right here in the player, I can put in a header in the editor. That's what it is. And I can specify things like, these are controls, control properties, control properties. So what this does, this little square brackets, this attribute, right, is if I go back to Unity, right, then if I look at the player object, here's the player object, you can see now that it's broken down a little subsection inside of my properties that says control properties. So whatever I type here in the header actually appears here in Unity. So kind of I can break this out a little bit to make it easier to look at. The other thing I have is things like ground detection. That's what this is. So this is my ground detection. So header, and we'll say inside there, ground detection properties, right? That's what these are, okay? By the way, velocity is also really a movement, a control property, a movement, and is grounded is definitely something that I want to put in here as well, right? So this is grounded, velocity should be up here. And if I press save and go back, you can see now that it's split up a little bit nicer, right? So control properties and ground detection properties right here. And really control properties are like movement. So this is, I can just change this to movement, right? And this is just ground detection. For my player, this is my player and my player behavior. I'm doing all this. So once I do that, you can see that it'll accept the editor in the editor. And this makes it nice and convenient for us to take a look at properties in my custom script that I put in the editor. I want to make another custom script. I want to get access to my minimap. My minimap is inside of my player object, right? Here it is. So my player has a minimap camera. I also have the minimap itself in the canvas. The canvas is not part of the player, right? I have my border and my mini mask, and inside the mini mask, I have my minimap. So this is the minimap border. Let's just rename this to minimap border. Minimap border. Mini mask, minimap, right? I want to turn off everything that's contained in the border, which means I want this to turn off completely. So what this looks like if I was to play the game, right? It looks like I can go here and just turn it off. That's what I want. This whole thing can just turn off and on. Okay, so I can save a little bit of space. So the minimap border is really a game object that I want to be able to enable, disable. So going back into here, let's make a new header. And we'll call this minimap, right? And I'll say that it's a game object, which is going to be minimap. I want to be able to, I don't want to make this public. I want to make this public so you can see it, all right? So I want to get access to the minimap. And remember what I can do to get a reference to the minimap game object, right, is I can just drag and drop. So if I go to player, on the right, now you notice it says minimap, and I can drag and drop from the minimap border into there. So now the player, I just dragged and dropped, the player has access to the minimap border game object. And remember, if I turn off because minimask and the minimap renderer, this is the minimap renderer. This renders the, this renders the map itself. That's what this does, okay? Minimask, it creates the shape for my map. And minimap border, it creates a border around outside of the minimask, so that gives me that little border. Okay, so again, if I was to run it, what it's going to show is the minimap has the map, it has a little border here, and it has this area that's white. That is, there's no tiles there. Okay, so I have access to the minimap now because I dragged and dropped it. What I can do is when I click on the key, right, I can toggle it on and off. I can say, hey, minimap, I want to set active, and I can check to see if it's active. So I can say, hey, minimap, if I'm active in hierarchy, if minimap is already active in hierarchy, right, then I want to turn it off. If it's not active in hierarchy, I want to turn it on. And that's the way to do it. That kind of is a toggle to allow you to turn off and on a game object that's available, that's viewable in the hierarchy. The hierarchy is this in here, right? So that's what this does. This allows me to turn on and off. This is being recorded, Dylan. It's being recorded on YouTube right now. It's live on YouTube, and it's being recorded inside of our eCentennial. It's already being recorded. It's live. We're live right now. All right, so if I run it now and I want to see turn the minimap off, I just press M, right? And that's what should turn the minimap off. M should turn it off and on. But it doesn't seem to be working, all right? Let's see why, right? So again, I want to set active. If my minimap is active in the archive, true or false, that's what it does. And I want to get my key code M in my key down for my player. Well, the reason why it didn't work is, look, it's not saved. See that little thing there? It says didn't save. Let's go back and run it again. And let's try it. So I want to press M. You can see now I can toggle on my minimap on and off, right? So that's part of my UI for today. Cool. So I can toggle this on and off. And you know what? I want to start with it off. Also, for my game, it's free aspect. I want to turn off my minimap starting off. I don't want to see my minimap at the beginning of my game. I only want to turn it on when I need it. So right now I don't need it, and I want to turn it off. So let's make sure that by default, the minimap set active is false. So I can take that, and in my start method, I can turn off the minimap. So I can just turn this to false. You can also do it if you don't want to do it here. So this will work. Watch. Right? So when I start, it's not there, and I can turn it back on again, right? Or I can turn it off right here by clicking this little button. That's another way to do it. So I don't have to do this here. I can do it in the hierarchy, right? So if I run it now, right, it's off by default. And if I want to turn it on, I can press it on, and notice it on the left, notice it actually turns on the left here. Okay. Awesome. This is fantastic. I like it, right? And that is control over an object. I can control when I want to turn the object on or off. And I can do that without key press. Excellent. So that's good. I've done this part. The minimap can turn on and off, right? What I want to also do now to enhance my scene is I notice that these guys push me out. I don't want that to happen. So in the enemy behavior, right? In the enemy asset, the nav mesh agent, I'm just going to collapse these for now so we don't need to see all this. In my nav mesh agent, the stopping distance is 0. Let's make the stopping distance 2. So it's not going to come into my square. It's going to stop 2 units away from me, right? So if I go back and press play, then when it comes at me, it's going to come at me and stop 2 units away from me, right? So it's not going to push me out anymore, right? It shouldn't. But the reason why it keeps pushing is, guess what? There's 2 of these guys, and one guy is pushing on the other guy. And that's why it's stopping. That's why it's still doing what it's doing. But the first guy stopped. The other guy pushed him. All right, next is this. Let's get rid of one of the enemies to make it a little bit more playable for me, right? Because I want to be able to do some other stuff in the game today, right? So again, if I go here and I look around, then the enemy is going to come at me, right? Here he is, right? And he's going to stop right there. He's not going to push me over. But what if I fall? What if I'm like, hey, I don't want to do this forever. I want to be able to play again. So we can do something called a spawn point, right? So what I want to do is in the scene where my character is, my player, I can double click on an object to get there. If I want to see the enemy really quickly, I can double click on the enemy and I can go there. I can also press the player and then inside here, press F if I want to see the player. So F will take me right to the player, which is frame select. All right, so that's what it does. I can kind of look in different objects by double clicking them in the hierarchy, right? Takes me right to that thing that I want to look at. And what I want to do with the player, right, is I want to make it so that it starts off as in the exact location it's in right now. I want to create another object, which is the spawn point. So let's make a new object inside the player. create empty. I'm going to call this object the spawn point. Okay, here's my spawn point. It's at 0, 0, 0 relative to the player, right? And I'm going to move my spawn point a little bit higher. So I'm going to take these little arrows. I'm on the spawn point, not the player, and I'm going to move it a little bit higher than the player. So it's above the player on the y-axis. Okay, and then I'm going to take the spawn point and drag it out of the hierarchy like this. What happens is it takes the world space coordinates now of where it was relative to the player. That's the spawn point. Okay, nice. I need that. So that's where the player is going to spawn. We can't see it because it's an empty object, right? So what I want to do is I want to be able to see this, and I want to go up to this little cube up here. Any kind of object you want to see in the hierarchy, you can actually mark it with a marker, like almost like a little 3D marker. So there's right there, that's the spawn point. If you want to see the name, I can actually click on one of these buttons here, and you can see that that's the player spawn point. Awesome. So player spawn point is there inside of the scene. And what I can do is I want it so that when I fall out inside the square, inside this area here, I'm going to have a another area here at the bottom, which is my death plane. Okay, my death plane. Let's do the death plane like so. I want to add a brand new 3D object called which is a cube. There's my cube. Let's make it 0, 0, 0. So I'll zero it out by resetting it, and then I'll pull it down on the handle so it's below the tiles. This is where it's just a little cube here, right? Let's rename the cube death plane. There's my death plane. And when my death plane is there, let's give it a color so we can see it. So by default, right now, we can go to the material, and we have a stone wall and a green material and an enemy marker and a bunch of other stuff. But I wouldn't mind if there was a red material that we can use, right, for my my death plane, right? So we'll just call this the death plane material, create new material, and we'll call this the death plane material. Sorry, I'm just going to pull this a little over. So in where the material is, which is new material, let's just rename it to death plane so we can see what it is. There's my death plane. And my death plane is going to be red, right? So my death plane itself, I can take the death plane material, this part right here that I just made, and I can just drag and drop it on there. And it makes it red, just like the enemies. Cool. I need this box collider. This box collider is basically the size of my death plane. So if I go in there, you can see that the box collider itself is the same size as the death plane. This is the borders or the bounding box that's surrounding my mesh, my model. Okay, that's what it is. This is good. What I want to do is I want to take my death plane and I want to make it much bigger than this. And I want to put it at a y-axis of -20. So 20 meters down is going to be the death plane. And I'm able to visualize it right now because it's red, right? I want to take my x-axis and maybe make this something like, I don't know, 50. And I want to make my scale on the z-axis also 50. All right, so it's kind of, this is kind of a place where my player can fall onto, right? And if 50 doesn't seem large enough, because it doesn't, these tiles are more, maybe just outside the edge of 50, let's make it 100. Doesn't matter how big you make it, but that's 100. So my death plane is quite large, right? And also it's 1 unit high, right? Which is the size of a regular cube. All right, that's how I can make it. We can make this half a unit high if you want, or whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't need to see my death plane. This is just for us to see what it looks like and where it's positioned. So I can go to where it says the mesh renderer and turn it off. See, I can turn it off, so I don't have to draw the death plane anymore. The mesh renderer turns things off and on from a drawing perspective. If I don't want to see my enemy, I can turn the whole enemy off, but I can go to the mesh renderer and turn it off and on. The enemy will still be there, but I can turn the mesh renderer off and on. for the enemy, right? So here's the enemy. I can go to the mesh renderer and turn it off and on. If I want to go to the tiles, I want to go to tile 1, and I can turn the mesh renderer for tile 1 off and on. The tile is still there, but I can turn it off so he doesn't draw, right? This is a really neat trick because I have a death plane that's here and it's invisible. I still have a box collider and I want to make it a trigger because I don't want to actually collide with anything. I want to make it a trigger collider. Trigger collider means that if I pass through it, it'll detect it. It's a different kind of collider than a regular box collider. A regular box collider will actually do physics collisions, right? I don't want a physics collision with my death plane. I want it to detect that you're passing through it, and then I want it to teleport my player back to the spawn point. That's what I want. Okay. How does this work? So I want to make a new script. We're going to call this the death plane controller. Here's my death plane controller. I'm going to double click onto it. And my death plane controller, it's just a mono behavior script, just like normal. I want to take my death plane controller script and drag and drop it onto my death plane controller. Like so. I dragged and dropped it right onto the add component button and it added it on. I can hide this now, these things. Okay. Box collider, again, has to be checkmarked as is trigger. That's important. But the rest, the actual death plane controller script itself is going to do all our work for us. I need a reference to the spawn point. So I'm going to say public, and I want the transform, only the transform of my spawn point. So that's the location. Transform is like the location and the position, rotation, and scale of my spawn point. That's what I want. So that's the location of my spawn point. It's going to show up in the death plane. What I can do is I can drag and drop from my spawn point to the death plane like this. Right? So now my death plane knows about my spawn point. Nice, nice. Now that I've got this and my death plane knows about my spawn point, I want to take my player. When my player collides with the death plane, it's going to teleport back to the spawn point. Let's do that. So I want to say something like this. Void on trigger enter. And by the way, on trigger enter requires another option, right? That's not here. And one thing it has, if you hover over, it says on trigger enter is called when the collider other enters the trigger. So I need this thing to be a collider other, right? A collider other. And what the collide, this is the way you would write it. By the way, on trigger enter is in the it's part of Unity. I'm not making this up. So this is the part of the Unity API. All right. What I need to do is inside here, I want to say that if the player is the one that triggers the collision, I want them to move back to the spawn point, right? I'm going to just go to the player now, and the player is tagged as a player. I don't know if you noticed that. So player tagged as a player. So I can say if the other collider that I'm colliding with dot game object dot compare tag is the player. If the other object that I'm colliding with, the other collider, the game object that belongs to the other collider, the game object's tag that belongs to the other collider is named player, then I want to transform my player back to, I'm going to teleport my player back to the transform location. However, I have a problem. My player has a character controller, and my character controller it needs to be used in a different way. I can't just literally just say transform, my player's transform dot position is equal to the spawn point dot position. I can't do that. It won't allow it. The character controller takes hold of the player, and I have to use the character controller to do that. So there's two ways I can do that. I can disable the character controller, move the player back to where I want into the spawn point, and then re-enable it. That's one way. And the other way is to use the player character controller. The problem is this player character controller, I don't have access. I only have access to the transform spawn point. But because I know that the other game object is a player, when I collide with my trigger, I can say something that looks like this. I can say var, and I want to call this the controller, is equal to the other dot game object, right, dot get component, the character controller. So I can say that I'm going to get access to the character controller, and I'm calling it controller. It's only temporary. Only when the player touches my my trigger, I can get access to the character controller. And then I have some actions I can commit. I can do this. I can say controller dot, and notice is I can check to see if it's grounded. I can do slope, skin widths, and velocity. I can do a bunch of stuff. I can also do a move, right? A move, and the move says, where is my vector3 motion? A more complex move function taking absolute movement deltas. So here's my move that I want to do. I want to move my character. Or I can do a simple move, which takes, adds speed. It adds onto my my character, right? So I got to be careful. This is not what I want. I don't want it to move by adding speed. I can actually move the it says motion. This is, you got to be very cautious here what this is doing. So more complex move function taking into account deltas, which means I'm going to actually add motion, like almost as if I'm adding physics. So what else can I do? Can I do anything else? So these are all the things I can do. I can transform. I can do all this stuff, but there is no teleport ability. I can't sit there and go like transform. I want to make the transform something else. I can't do that. What I could do is I could enable and disable. I can say that enabled, right, as an example, is equal to false. So once I disable the character controller, now I have control of the character themselves, the other game object compare tag, right? So I can say that var, right, the player's transform, right? So we'll call it the player, is equal to other dot game object that transform. So this is the player's transform, player's location, and so on. That's what this is, a transform. And I can say that the player transform, actually I don't have to even use the player. I can say the other game object transform is equal to the spawn point. And I want to make it so that it's a spawn point position. So I can say that the game object's transform, the other game object's transform, which is the player position, is equal to the spawn point position. And then I can turn the controller back on. Controller dot enabled is equal to true. So this allows me to take control of the player's controller, right? First I need to get a reference to it. That's what this does. So this one does get a reference to the player's character controller. Because the character controller controls the player, right? Then I got to turn it off. Turn controller off. Move the player where you want. Move the player to the spawn point. And then turn it back on. Turn controller on. I'm annotating this for you so you understand the process. All right. And the first part is, hey, check if the object that triggers a collision is the player. Oh, wow. Can't type at all with beans today. Okay, so that's what I did there. And that's this collider. All right, so that is the way it works. Okay, let's see if this whole thing works. I don't need my start and update function, so I can get rid of these. So it can just look like this. Okay, and after this, I'm going to put this up on GitHub for you. So cool. So let's see how this works. I've got my player, and I'm going to press play. And if everything goes well, when I collide with my death plane, then I'm going to teleport back. See that? Let's see. And teleport back. And teleport back. Okay, and if I jump somehow, and I'm going over here, and I jump on the other side and fall, then I'm going to hopefully teleport back, right? So, and teleport back. I'm going to fall off. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, cruel world. I want to teleport and fall off the oblivion. Teleport back. Okay. And I need to do that because I don't want me to fall and stuff like this. Okay. I got two things I can do. I've got Unity Collab telling me that I've made a bunch of changes. I made changes to materials. I made changes to my scripts. And I made changes to my scene. And now I can go to the collaborate and say, these are all the changes I made. And I can say that I added death plane to the scene, the main scene. This is in Unity Collab, all right? So I can publish those changes. So the next person I'm working with that other person, they're going to see a change on Unity Collab, and they can go in and pull it, and everything's good. But I need to put this up on GitHub. This is not up on GitHub. This is just me and my cloud on my own, right? So I can pull this down. And then what I can do is I can go to my GitHub, right? So I say, okay, git add dot, git commit -m, added death plane, git push, okay? So that'll put everything up. So now you have that. You have that piece of functionality that I did with you. Awesome. All right, so we have a death plane. Let's launch Unity again. And notice the process. I close down Unity. I put it up on GitHub. I open up Unity again. Right, and I keep doing that over and over again. It's the cleanest way to do it. I'm still not trusting anything that you can download from Unity to connect with GitHub. Great. All right, let's go back to the enemy, and we want to talk about some user interfaces, right, today. And I want to talk about a health bar. All right, I want to add a health bar because we're in the lab, and I did this part, and I did this part, and I just talked about create a death plane. That's what I did for this thing, and a spawn point for the player. Okay, that's what I did, right? Because we're going to use the death plane and the spawn point. Maybe in the future, I'm going to have more than one spawn point, depending on where I am in the game. Okay. I want to add in a health bar that I can reuse, a reusable health bar. Okay. And what I want to do is the health bar. We've seen health bars before, and in the Unity inside my little PowerPoint this week, I do a couple things for you guys. I talk about the canvas element, which is kind of the container for all my user interface items. That's what that is. And I also talk about at the bottom, right? I want to build a health system, and one of the things I want to do is I want to have a little health bar. So there's a couple ways to do this. These are all the things I need. I need some kind of slider and maybe a custom health bar in world space. So there's two health bars that I can use. Okay. So how do I do that? And there's some process that I'm going to follow here. This is the process I'm going to follow to make my health bar right now. Okay. This is the process. And I put it in here in your PowerPoint, so you can always go back to it and reference it if you need to know. All right, cool. I need to build a health bar, and I'm going to do that by myself. I'm going to use the tool of my choice, which for me is Fireworks. So here's Fireworks. You can do any tool you want. You can use Paint.net. You can use Microsoft Paint. You can use Photoshop. You can use Illustrator. You can use whatever you want to do this, but for now, I'm going to make it. I'm going to put it up on eCentennial, and you can download it. Okay. So I want a health bar, and I want to make a border for the health bar. So let's make a new one. So the health bar is going to be 325 by 50. 325 by 50. This is what the health bar is going to, the shape of the health bar. All right. And what I want to do is I want to make a little border for the health bar. Okay. Right now, what I want is instead of this rectangle, let's make the rectangle transparent. And I want to add a border that's black. And I want to make the border only on the inside. So this is inside stroke only. And the border's stroke is going to be something like 5. And let's make sure that it starts at 0, 0. And it's exactly the size I want it, 325 by 50. Okay. A border around the health bar. This is a texture that I'm creating right now. All right. Cool. Nice, nice, nice. Excellent, excellent. And I want to add some flair. I want to make the health bar look interesting more than just this. So let's make it so that it's slightly different. So I'm going to grab another kind of the top left corner. And in the top left corner, I'm going to add a square that's 14 by 14. And let's also fill it up with black. Right? So that's kind of where my health bar is going to look. And let's make another one. And put it on the other corner. Right? So my health bar is going to kind of look like this. Right? And I'm designing, almost doing a little bit of pixel art, if you will. Right? And I can put that on the other corners too. Again, you can do this with any program you want, okay? And that is the border of my health bar, all right? Now, what I also want to do is in the second half, just down in here, I want this to be like kind of a gradient. There's a couple ways to do this. To make it simple, I'm just going to get an object, another square, but I'm going to take away the border. So I'm going to put the border back and get rid of it. So no border for this one. And I'm going to change the gradient. So it's kind of like some version of, I don't know, maybe 128 by 128. So maybe gray, like that middle gray color. And I want to do it so that I can, about a little bit less than halfway down, something like this. I want to take this, see, it colored my square. Here, sorry about that. Let's copy paste here. Old program. I want to take this thing, my little square here, my rectangle, and I wanted to kind of go at the bottom of my health bar, but I want it to be semi-transparent. So I want to make it so it's like 50% transparent, like this. And I want to put this on the back, so I can arrange it by sending it to back. So that's what my health bar is going to look like. If you want, you can make another rectangle just like this one. So this rectangle is kind of the shading area, right? It's right here. And I can duplicate this, right? So I want to copy this layer as an example, because I've got hold of it. I can copy paste. So there's 2 of them. And for the second one, right, what I can do is I can take this part and pull it down a little bit more, like kind of halfway there, like this. And so I have kind of a gradient, right, of areas that I have from here to there. If you don't like that, and if you want to move a little further, or you don't want to do this artwork, it's okay too. Whatever you want to do, guys. I'm here to make your game look as nice as possible. All right, so now that I've got this is my health bar. Let's save it. So I'm going to say, I want to save it as a PNG 32 or a PNG of some kind, right? It's got to have a transparent background. So again, I'm not changing the layers or flattening them. I can come back here. Let's say I want to change it to something else. I can come back here and change it later to something else. So File, and then Save As. And I'm going to change this. I've already done a bar in practice, but I want to call this health bar. let's put this health bar up on eCentennial for you. So you don't have to make it. So up on eCentennial, not this one, up on eCentennial. I got 2 of these. There it is. I want to add inside where it says my lecture, course lecture. I'm going to drag and drop my health bar so you guys can have it. Come on, there we go. You should have that now available to you. I'm just going to pull it down so it's here. All right, that's it. You see the health bar there. You can please download the health bar if you're watching a video, and you can use this as an example so you can continue the lab that we're doing today. Okay, cool. You got the health bar. I got the health bar. Let's go back on Unity now. So in Unity, what I want to do is I want to go here inside of textures, and I'm going to drag and drop that health bar that I just made. But my health bar needs adjustment, right? My health bar on the right-hand side, by default, it detects it as a default texture type. And I need to make it Sprite 2D and UI. Sprite 2D and UI. So let's click on there and change the Sprite 2D and UI. I'm also going to change a couple of settings here for my health bar. The other one is my filter mode. It's going to be point no filter, so it's as clear as possible. My maximum size is 2048, right? That's fine. If I really don't want to, I can take off compression completely because I don't want it to compress, right? And I want to click complete apply. When I do that, my health bar looks like a proper texture again. Okay. So again, options I did, I dragged and dropped it into my textures folder, changed it to Sprite 2D and UI, went to my advanced area where it says filter mode, and I chose point no filter, and under compression, I said none, no compression. Why? Because I want this to be as accurate for you guys as possible, as pixel perfect as I can. The only difference is that my pixels per unit is 100. If I made this 1, it would be 1-to-1, pixel perfect. All right, so that's the first part. So I've got a health bar now, and hopefully you guys are with me. I want to put it on my canvas. I already have a canvas element, but I don't want to add it to this one. I want to make a new one, all right? And I want to turn this one off for now. So let's just turn it off. So there's no canvas, it's off. And I want to make a new canvas. So right click somewhere down here, and I want to make a new canvas, UI canvas. I'm going to call this the health bar canvas. Okay, that's what this is. And on my health bar canvas, I want to add a new UI image. And this is going to be the health bar border that I just made. Health bar border. What I want to do is I want to take that little health bar and drag and drop it into the source image. But the problem with it is that the size of the image, if I look at it in 2D, if I click 2D here, and I want to see my canvas looks like a little square, right? So if I go here, I double click on my canvas to see it. And if I click on 2D, it looks like a square. I don't want it to be a square. I want the image to be the same size as my health bar. So I'm going to click on the health bar and say, set native size. Set native size, which does this. It makes it so that the health bar looks the same ratio as my original health bar. Let's zoom in by scrolling in. Now I'm looking at this like this, and I can see it because I'm in 2D mode. If I wasn't in 2D mode, then you couldn't see this. It would be like skewed, or it would look like I'm in 3D. Here I'm in 2D mode. If I press the middle mouse wheel in 2D mode, I can pan around the scene. No problem. I can pan up and down, and I can organize myself so I can look at this in a nice way. All right, so now that I have my health bar up, what I want to do is I want to add a background, which is the fill for my health bar. Again, I'm going to right click on my health bar canvas. I'm going to add a new UI item, which is an image. The image that shows up, I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see it. The image that shows up is white and it's in front of the border. I want the image to be behind the border. And all you need to do is take the image and drag and drop it above the health bar border in the canvas. And now it appears behind the image. So how does this work? Because canvases work so that they're layered in hierarchy order by default. So however I have it in the hierarchy is how it's layered here. Let's rename this from image to my health bar fill. Health bar fill. Okay, but it's weird. It's like this square, and this thing is like a different size. Let's make it so that the image, this image here, matches the same size as the health bar, and by making the health bar fill 325 by 50. And now you can see it's the back of the health bar. I don't like the color, so we can change the color of the image to green, like so. Okay. So that makes the health bar look like a health bar. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to click on the health bar and then shift click on health bar border. So I want to select both of these. And then I want to right click and I want to go to create empty parent. Okay, my empty parent, my game object, has got to be exactly the same size, which is 325 by 50. So my empty game object parent is a container that contains my health bar border and my health bar fill. And let's rename this to health bar. And let's make it so what it is. It's actually a health bar, which is in screen space. Health bar screen space. It's a different kind of, I'm going to make two health bars. One is going to be screen space. The other one's going to be world space. Okay. Cool. And if I run the game now, right, just to run the game the way it is, you're going to see that by default, my health bar is floating around where I'm looking, right? Because by default, right, the health bar canvas is using something called screen space overlay. Screen space overlay means it's going to be kind of on the eyes of my camera. And it's going to use the default camera as the target. That's what it's doing. Okay. So that's what this is. Screen space overlay. Again, I'm in 2D mode, and that's why I can see it the way I'm doing. Cool. I need controls to make this health bar go up and down. I'm making a health bar object, right? My health bar canvas. So my health bar screen space. So this thing here, I want to add to my health bar screen space object, I want to add another little control that's part of my my slide. It's going to be a slider that's going to be added into the canvas element. So add component. I'm going to call it slider. All right, this one. And what it's going to do is this slider is going to give me a sliding control of my health bar. But what it needs is it doesn't need to be interactable. So let's make the interactable false. And I don't want a color tint. It's going to be none. So it's going to look like this, first of all. Before I move forward with this, I want to take my health bar and I want to go to the little rect transform and I want to select stretch. So again, what I did was I went to my health bar fill, little transform, and went here to the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing with my health bar border. My health bar border, I'm going to go to my transform and click this stretch. What this does is if I change the size of my health bar screen space, the actual object itself that contains my health bar fill and health bar border, then it's going to stretch to be whatever size I want it. This is important because otherwise, if I change this and I didn't stretch my health bar fill and health bar border, it's going to, kind of be skewed and it'll be all offset. I don't want that. Now, with my health bar screen space selected, I want to take my health bar fill and drag and drop it into where it says fill rect, like this. And now it kind of turns off, yeah? But what this allows me to do, my slider, what allows me to do, this little value here, I can turn my health bar up and down with my slider control. All right? And I want to leave it on. And I want to put the maximum value to 100, as in 100% or 100 hit points. I also want to use whole numbers. I don't want to do 88.4. I want to make it so that it is 88 or 99 or 100. All right, so these are exact values. 11, 0, right? 1. You can't see 1 or 4. It's really low, but it's going to be like something that looks like this. So that's the control. All right, so that is the health bar screen space. It allows me to make a health bar in screen space that I can control. I need a script to help me with this now. And I want to go into my scripts and I want to make a new script. And I want to make the new script that's going to be called health bar, right? And my health bar, it's going to be my, and there's going to be two scripts I'm going to need. I'm going to need a health bar controller, all right? Health bar controller. So there's going to be the health bar script that's going to be used for my screen space, and the health bar script that's going to be used for my world space. So health bar screen space controller. All right. Some really long, but at least you know what it is. Health bar screen space controller. Cool. So what I want this to do, if I double click on it, is, and it's a really long class name, but at least you know what it is, right? Is I want this to do a couple things. I want to be able to get access to the slider. In order for me to get access to the slider, I got to go to using Unity Engine.ui, right? And up the top here, I want to say public, right? Slider, right? And I want to call this the health bar slider, all right? Because I want to get access to that health bar slider. And inside my start, I want to find the health bar slider dynamically. So I want to say, hey, health bar slider. I want to make that equal to the script that this the object that the script is attached to. So I'm going to say get component of that object, and I want to find a slider control that's on that object. So what this is going to do is it's going to find the slider. Instead of me dragging and dropping, it's going to find the slider automatically for me by doing it this way. So that means that if I go back to Unity, now, and if I attach my health bar screen space controller onto my health bar screen space, then notice that there's a slider. I could pull my slider in here, but instead, if I run this thing, notice that it automatically finds it. I don't have to do anything. It finds it automatically for me. There's no need to drag and drop. So this is a way, if a script is connected to an object that has a component you want to find, you don't need to drag and drop it. It'll just find it for you. So this makes the slider. I get the slider control. Hey, awesome. The next thing I want to do is I want to set the slider, right, to some value, right? So I want some values that I want to have for my health bar. By default, I want to have two public values, and they're going to be integers. A current health, which I'm going to set to 100 by default, and I'm also going to set a maximum health also to 100. And inside the start, just in case you change anything, I'm going to say that current health is equal to maximum health. So what this is going to do is if I go back to here, then you're going to see current health and maximum health is 100. What I want to do is I can make these sliders in the editor by putting something called range in effect, like this. I can say that the minimum range for my current health is 0, and the maximum range is 100. So I can't dial it up beyond that. And same thing goes with my maximum health. My maximum health, my range maybe is going to be starting at 1, and my maximum range is 100. So I don't want to make it so like there's only 1 or 0, but I can dial this up. And if I did this, now if I go back to the editor, these values become sliders that are already turned up to max. Why? I want to be able to monitor what actual value of my health bar is at runtime. So this is the one that I can use. Cool, I like it. And what I can do is I can make this class available anywhere else, so I can control it. And the way to make that class available so it's public in my game is use something called system.serializable. This is an attribute that makes my class available anywhere in the game. In my update function, I want to test this health bar from working. And I need 2 little functions for me to do that here at the bottom. One, I'm going to make a public function that's void, that's going to be take damage. So I can take damage, and it's going to be an integer amount. And what it's going to do is whenever I take damage, I want my health bar slider, the value of my health bar slider, to take the damage away from it. Damage. Okay, health bar slider.value minus equal to damage. I also want to keep track of my current health. So when I take damage, I also want my current health to take damage. Again, you can also make this equal to the value, but value is actually a float and damage is an integer, and you have to convert. I'm not going to convert here. I also want to check to see if my damage is going to bring my value of my health bar lower than 0. Then I want to make it equal to 0. So I never want to have my health bar go like less than 0 ever. Then I want my current health to be equal to 0. And I also want to make my health bar slider dot value also equal to 0. And let's do it the other way around, just so that we can maintain that kind of stuff. So my health bar slider, I really don't need to make this public, right? This is just a way of me accessing my health bar. I only want to make my current health and my maximum health public. So we can make this private. And because it's going to find everything automatically, I can put it where I want, which is somewhere down here. I only want to expose my current health and maximum health. And I can make that into a header. Health properties. And I can put these together. And if I do this and I go back to my editor, right, then I can see now that inside of my editor, some things change. I only have current health and maximum health, which is inside health properties. My slider is hidden. Nice. I also want a mechanism to reset my health. So public void reset. And in my reset function, I want to say that my health bar slider dot value is equal to maximum health. And I also want to set my current health to maximum health. So this one, it resets everything to maximum. Let's test it by having a couple of inputs. So in my update, and this is just for now, right? I want to have my input, if input dot get key down, and let's suppose I get key code dot k, that'll be like for kill, right? If key code dot k, if that's selected, then I want to take damage, and let's say I want to take 10 damage. However, if my input dot get key down, and if it's key code dot r, then that'll be reset. So that is a mechanism so I can test my health bar. So I can see it live and I can test it and all that kind of stuff. All right. Pretty simple, I think. And let's see if I can test it live in my screen space. So again, I'm going to go back to this and then run it. And if I run it, and if I press the K button, then it takes damage. Right? And notice on the right, it also has the damage that I'm taking, 50, plus the value that's here for my health bar. The reason why I want to expose it here is so that way, if I want to read the health values from some other class, I can go and say, what's my current health? My current health is 50. So I have a mechanism for keeping track of my current health now. Cool. There's a couple of things I don't like. I don't like the fact that when the health bar kind of reduces, so if I slide this back like this, then I have transparency. I want to make it so that the background is another color, right? So let's add another color to this sequence. So where it says health bar fill, I want to duplicate the health bar fill, right? So Control D, and I want to put it behind the health bar fill. And this will be another background. I want to call this health bar background. Now you can choose any color you want here, right? For example, if you want to make it opaque, you can choose a black color, right? Let's make it black as an example. So this black color, if I go back to my health bar screen space, and if I reduce it, then it becomes, what I should see is my health bar background should not change. Okay, should not change. What I need to do for my health bar background is, again, what I need to do is I need to maximize it so it fills my space. So if I go back to here, then I should see my health bar background. So why is it that my health bar background is not being seen? Well, because by default, it says, there's a couple things, right? Notice that when I did that, because I copied my health bar fill, and my health bar fill is using a reference, right? First of all, where is my health bar background? It is way over here. It's here, right? But notice there's a couple of things. There's a min and max anchors, and there's a scale of 1. Why? Because I copied the original health bar fill, which once I made it into a slider, it changed the essence of what my health bar was. Let's get rid of it and try again. Let's do it again, and I'll make it from scratch. So I go right-click, UI, and I'll go into an image. Just like before, I'll call this health bar fill, health bar background. I'll change the color to what I want. In this case, let's make it red. So we can see a red color for damage, right, as an example. Let's make it the right size. So it's going to be 325 by 50. And let's put it behind everything else, like so. Okay? And make sure that you expand to fill. So if that way, if I move my entire health bar, then it's going to fill. I can make it look like a battery, or I can make it look like a really thin line, but it's going to scale everything in the proper order. This is my health bar background. So now, if I run it, then I get the functionality that I want, right? I can get damage, and it looks like my health bar is taking damage, but really what I got is 2 layers for my health bar. Fantastic. I got everything that I want for my health bar screen space, and now I can save it inside of my prefabs folder. So again, I'm going to go down here, and in my prefabs folder, right, I have my resources, prefabs, there it is. I want to drag and drop my health bar screen space in there. Not that one, this one. Wonderful. There's my health bar screen space. So why? That means I can connect this health bar screen space to my regular canvas later on. Okay, right now it's just the health. I didn't take the canvas, just my health bar itself. The image and the way it worked and the code and all that stuff is preserved. Fantastic. I love it. But I want to make my health bar also work in world space. And what I want to do is I want to attach this health bar to my enemies, as an example. So how do I do that? Well, now my health bar, which is health bar canvas, let's rename this health bar canvas to health bar world space. Okay. Notice my canvas. There's different options for the canvas. My canvas screen space overlay, I want to change this from screen space overlay to world space. Now, I also need to indicate which camera this thing is connected to. And by default, it's going to be my player cam. But what if in the future, I want some other camera to be the one, right? I need to make this something that is editable. For now, I'm going to drag the player cam on top of this. Okay, cool. So what do I see now when I do that? Well, if I do it now, I don't see my health bar like before, right? But if I look way up in the sky somewhere, right? Way somewhere in the sky, I might see my health bar. Why? Because my health bar, my friends, is like actually the same size. This is my little level. My health bar is like massive. It's way up here in the sky, right? And it's an actual object inside world space. So what I want to do now is I want to make it so that my canvas, which is this health bar world space, is the same size as my health bar. So I want to change this to width to 326, which is going to contain my health bar, and 50. And if I go in there, you can see that my canvas now is pretty much hugging my health bar. Even if I go right in there, you can see that there's no space between one and the other. I need to make it 326 because I find that when I make it 325, it is slightly too small, but 326 is the right number. So that health bar world space is the actual space now. And if I save this and go back and play my game again, then you're going to see that the health bar is massive and is going to probably be viewable somewhere in world space. Right, there it is, way up there. Right? Let's put this to 0, 0. So we'll put this on my plane so I can see it now. And if I press run it again, and if I go back out here, then I can see it. It's like really massive. It's like taking up my entire world. Look at it. It's even got Z fighting happening right now with some of the other things that it's colliding with, right? But it's like literally massive. It's like a massive thing. I need to make this smaller, guys. And I find that the right value to make my health bar world space, I've tested this a couple times, is 0.05. It might be 0.005. Let me see what that looks like at 0.05. So where is this thing? There it is. 0.05 is still massive. It's the size of my entire tile. Let's make it 0.005. That's more like it. Cool. What I want is for this thing to be on top of my enemy. Let's go out of 2D mode for a second so I can see my enemy. I want to position this so it's on top of my enemy, just from a sizing perspective, so I can see if it's right. So this is what it's going to look like. If I put it into my enemy, or on top of my enemy, all right, here's my health bar. Oop. Putting it here so you can see it. That looks pretty good, right? It's probably around the right size. So I think that's why I'm using that like that, so I can show you what it looks like. Okay, I like it, right? But I need to zero it out because I'm going to make it a prefab, and I don't want these numbers to be part of the prefab. So let's zero this out. 0, 0, 0. And I want to take this health bar world space and I want to make it into a prefab by dragging and dropping it. There we go. Awesome. So I've got my health bar world space and my health bar screen space. I'm not done. I need some code to control my health bar. For example, if I put my health bar right now into my enemy, and let's go there, right? So again, I'm going to zero it out and put it out to where it's supposed to be. And when my enemy runs around, I got a problem, right? So I can run around and then it's cool and my enemy comes at me, but oh man, my health bar is like totally not visible and it's on top of my enemy's head. And it's like, what about if I go on the other side of it? If I have my enemy facing me and I do this is okay. What if my enemy is not facing me? Then it might look like opposite, right? And I don't want that to happen. So we need to change it around so it's always facing me in the right direction, the right configuration. Okay. So in order for me to do that configuration change on the health bar world space, I need another script. Not on the health bar screen space, but on the health bar world space, the new health bar I just made. I'm making two prefabs. One that I can attach to my screen for me, and one that I can attach to my enemies or game objects in the scene or whatever in world space. Okay. So cool, this is my health bar world space, but I need a script. Let's add a script. And we're going to say that new C# script that I'm going to call health bar world space controller, right? Just so that you know which one it is. You can make these script names smaller if you like. What I want to do with the health bar world space is I need reference to the camera, right? I need a reference to the camera that I'm looking at. So my player camera. So again, what I want to do is I want to say that the player that's in the scene is what I want to have access to. So I want to say that, hey, I want a camera, right? And I want to call this the player camera. That's what I want to have access to, right? Let's make this public. And I don't really need it to be a camera necessarily. I need it to be a transform. So the position of my camera, my player camera. All right, cool. Again, there's a couple ways to find this, right? So if I attach the health bar world space to my health bar world space, this one, like so, then right now I have this player cam. Right now, I'm just dragging and dropping everything to do with the player camera. So I'm just going to drag and drop this in here. Now, what I want is every frame, I want the health bar to look at me, the player, in the right orientation. I don't need my start method. Let's get rid of this. But instead of doing it in update, and I talked about the execution order in one of the first classes we were together, I want to use something called late update. Late update triggers after the regular update happens. So if I move around, I move, and then later on there's fixed update, and then after that for physics, and then there's late update. Late update I can do after all the other updates are done. So after I've moved, then this thing is going to relook at me, just slightly after, like milliseconds after. So I want to put it here, and I want to say something like this. I want to say the transform that this script is attached to, I want to look at, right? And if I say that the player cam dot transform is what I want it to look at, but it is the transform, right? Player cam is what I want it to look at. And what I want to do is, because the lookout actually looks at it needs a transform. That's what it needs, okay? Looks at a transform. What I want also to do is I want to add my current position. So if I say my camera.position is what I want it to look at, I want to say that what I'm looking at is my current position plus my camera's position. And what this is going to do is it's going to create this billboard. This is billboarding. So billboarding is what happens when you have a game and you see a piece of grass, as an example, in a game. And we look at games, and a lot of them have, in 3D, tons of grass and leaves and everything all over the place. But all of those grass and leaves, they're not actually 3D objects. They're actually little textures. They're like sprites, little 2D objects, right? And then what I'm doing is I'm making them all look towards the player's camera so that the player sees that the grass is in 3D, but actually it's in 2D. Right, so that's what I'm making it do. So the player's health bar is going to look like it's always looking at the player's camera. Let's see if this works, this little health bar billboard thing. All right. So if I run this thing now, and if I go, then when the enemy comes at me, I should see the health bar. Oh man, what happened? How come it's not looking at me, right? Take a look. Is it doing what it's supposed to do, guys? No, it's not. This guy's really tall too, massively tall. So this thing isn't quite doing what I'm wanting it to do. Let's see what I did wrong. So just wanted to make sure that I've got my health bar looking. I'm just going to look at my reference script that I wrote earlier. Oh, that's really dumb. What I meant was this should be player camera dot forward. So wherever the camera's looking at, right, plus my current position, it's going to create a line between a vector where my player's looking. That's going to be the normalized vector. And then my player position is going to draw a line between those two things, right? So wherever this thing is, it's going to basically create it's going to point to, right, the player's, what the camera is looking at. All right, let's try this again. Silly. All right, let's try it again. So when I do it now, and if I jump on over here, you can see now it's looking at me. And if I go over here and I go up here, then it's still looking at me, even though the enemy is running in different places, right? This thing is always going to look at me, no matter where I am, right? So if I want to see the enemy's health, the enemy is like really tall. If I want to see the enemy's health at any time, right, no matter where I am, it's always going to look in my direction. See? And what's actually happening is in the scene, just to show you what the scene is doing, then the camera is looking in the same direction as the health bar is tilted in the same direction as the player is looking. So example would be, if I move this, and let me show you this in real time. So I'll bring this kind of down here so you can see it. Look at this and look at what I'm looking at. So if I look up here, then the actual health bar looks where I'm looking, right? So if I look at this thing, the health bar is going to look right at me, but it's going to appear like I'm looking, wherever I'm looking, the health bar is going to orient itself so it's looking right at me, right? So that I always see the health bar in kind of a 2D way. And if I press K to kill, you can see that it is indeed, no matter what I do, it's always looking in the same direction. Okay? That's called billboarding. All right, so that's pretty cool. So we've got a health bar, except for I need to attach the changes that I made to my health bar world space. I want to save that into my prefabs, right? So I want to go health bar world space, and I want to go override, and I want to apply all to my prefab. So now all prefabs, anytime I pull a bar into my world space, right? World space is 0, 0, 0. Screen space 0, 0, 0. But when I put something into the world, let's say, for example, I want to put another bar in here, right? Here's my health bar. And I want to put this other health bar in, I don't know, and somewhere else, another place in the scene. Let's say, for example, on top of my pillar. I want to break my pillar, and this pillar here is going to have its own little health. So I want to attach it to the pillar, somewhere over here, right? And you can make it so that it's in the middle again. It's up to you how you want to put it. But let's say I want to put it somewhere so that the player can see it all the time. So it's in the middle. And I want to destroy the pillar. Then I can do that and press play. And you can see now that I have the ability for me to see object in the scene. And this is where we have a problem. So I have a little problem here. It says, unassigned reference exception. The variable player camera of health bar world space controller has not been assigned. Well, the reason for this is because it doesn't automatically drag and drop my player's camera. And this is the problem I was indicating before. I mean, I could silly just do this every single time. But if I forgot, it's going to give me this error. There's a way around this. But for now, I'm not going to do it. So now let's take a look and see if I can see that health bar. It's there. If I could only see it. Right? Again, I'm just bouncing around. But if I can see it now, you can see that there's a health bar. And if I press K, it kills both of them at the same time. Again, this is my testing mechanism. And I can remove that from the script later on. Cool. Excellent. So I've got a health bar mechanism. Let us get rid of this now. I don't need this health bar, but I want all enemies to have this. So in the enemy prefab, I want to go to overrides and click apply all. That means all enemies will have access to my player. But I have a problem. I have a real problem. What about if I pull an enemy in again? Will it do the same thing that my other health bar did? So example, I want to pull an enemy and I want to put it over next to this one, right? Let's pull that enemy over here. There's two enemies now in the scene. Will that health bar give me the same error as I got from the other one? Let's see what happens. So yeah, right? That's an issue, right? So it won't billboard. It's got this problem where the new enemy that I brought in doesn't know, it doesn't know what my player is. Take a look at that. First of all, my nav mesh is an issue. It says unassigned reference exception. The variable of enemy behavior has not been assigned. You must need to do this. Enemy behavior needs a nav mesh player. It doesn't know what it is, right? That's a real issue, right? And let's make sure that it is on the ground because it has to be on the ground for it to know what it is. All right, so, all right, that's the first problem. So if I double click on this issue, it shows me that the health bar world space doesn't have a camera. I need to fix this, my friends. I can't allow this to happen every time I drag a new object in with a world space. So let's fix this problem. So right now I'm finding the player camera by a transform, right? And I want to automatically find the player camera. So I want to bring back my start method. And what I want to do in my start method is find the player camera. So I can say something like, first of all, my player camera is a transform, right? And I want to say that the player camera, right, is equal to, I want to find a game object in the scene, game object dot find. I want to find the player camera. So the player. Now, again, I could find an object that's called player camera, or I could do that too, right? I'm just pointing this out to you. There's lots of ways to do this, but I can find an object called player, all right? Except I want to find the transform of the player's camera, not the player, right? So I could find player camera. And I could say that I want the transform of the player's camera to be assigned to this player's camera automatically. Let's see if this works any different. All right, so again, going back. And if I run it again, maybe now it's going to be okay. And man, what happened? I mean, I did what I was supposed to do, and it was supposed to find the player's camera, right? So it says player cam is what I called it. Man, I can't believe I didn't name it properly. Let's name that thing proper. So let's change this to player camera instead of player cam. Let's see if it finds, that's how simple it is to find, right? So let's see if player cam, if I can find it now. And now, what the heck? It doesn't find the player, and I don't understand. It says my enemy behavior script is not working, and it's trying to find the player, and it's a transform. And what? How come this enemy can't find the player? This is enemy behavior. So enemy behavior says, well, the player is a transform. I need to do the same thing with my enemy behavior script too in my AI from last week. So the way that works is I want to do the same thing. I want to say, hey, player, that's going to be equal to the game object dot find, and I want to find, and again, there's different ways to do this. I want to find with a name of player, except this is a transform, and I'm finding a game object. Let's use the player dot transform. That's in the enemy behavior script. So I need to do it twice. One for my enemy behavior and one for my health bar world space behavior for the player camera. All right, let's see if I can do this now and if I fix my problems. And now I'm good. Now both of them look at me no matter where I am. If I press K, they get killed, right? And no matter where I'm looking, they're going to continue to look at me, and I'm always going to see the health bars. And they're working, and I can have multiple objects in here, and they're good. I don't have to update the prefabs because the prefabs are using the same script, so they automatically get updated. All right, this is a great place to stop for the health bar. Let's save it. I know I'm making a really long video today, but at least it gives you a chance to see everything. So I'll save that. I'll put it up on Collab. So I'll go to Collab and I'll say added health bars to the project, right? Publish. So that publishes to Collab, which means now if you downloaded it again, you get all that stuff. If you're collaborating with me, you'd have that update right now, health bars, right? And then what I want to do is I want to save the scene. I want to save the project, and I want to close this off and put this up on GitHub. And then you're going to have this too. So clear, git add dot, git commit -m added health bars, git push. So that is your health bar object. We did it from scratch. We built it. We built the texture. After we built the texture, which is the health bar PNG, right? We ended up making two different health bars, one for screen space and the other one for world space. Screen space, again, it works for us, like the player, and world space would work for any other object you want to attach to. And you can customize them if you want to make different colors and whatever you want. You can add a different other functionality. But as this is loading, let's see what we've got left to do today. So we went to our lab 5, and I kind of did, we built UI assets, which the one asset I did was the health bar, and I did this part. Okay. I want to do some additional work now with UI assets and talk about some UI that I want to build, right? And one thing I want to do is I want to make my start scene a little nicer looking. So back to Unity, and I've got my health bars. Awesome. One thing to note is if I want to add a health bar, let's add my canvas back in, because my canvas has been disabled, right? So I want to go back to my canvas and put it back in. So now my canvas, my main canvas is on again. So that means if I run it, and if I press M, the mini map will come on again, right? Cool. So same thing as where we had before. And if I fall off the world, then it's going to re-teleport me back on. I can't see my death plane because my death plane doesn't exist. Okay, not for the mini map. All right, cool. So my canvas works, but what I want in my canvas is some place to have an interface. And interfaces work in different ways. By the way, lately, has anyone seen a very popular game that's out there right now? It's called Valheim. It's a brand new game. It was made with Unity. And it's very, very popular out there in the community on Steam. Has anyone played or looked at Valheim at all? Okay, I want to talk about user interfaces by looking at an actual game's user interface for a second. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to share the game with you, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the quality of my recording to you guys. So I'm going to optimize for video and share some sound. Right, this is for the people that are here in class. And let's take a look at Valheim. So I'm going to bring up Valheim. It's in my Steam games, right? So you can see I got Steam up here, and I'm going to go to Valheim. And Valheim is a survival crafting game, perhaps similar to Minecraft in some ways, or Rust, some other kind of games. And what it does is it uses procedural world generation to create the world. So you can see that there's a couple things. Hopefully you guys can see this. I'm not sure if you guys can, but hopefully you guys can see this thing as well. I'm going to just turn off the sound from Valheim right now because I'm not monetizing, but again, the sound might be a little loud for you guys, right? So I'm just going to go to the volume and just turn this way down, okay? All right, there we are. So there's Valheim. Notice that I get a nice little graphic. I get some kind of a live scene in the background. This is my menu, right? And plus, it's a early access game, so it has a bunch of stuff that's in here that's pretty cool. I have a settings menu that comes up. So this is my little settings menu that you just saw earlier. This is a user interface. By the way, this game has been done in Unity, and it's one of the most popular games on Steam. It's sold over 2 million copies since February 2nd, if I'm not wrong, when it got released. And we have more than 300,000 concurrent players playing on Steam right now. And what this means is this company that's made up of not very many people, right, has made over $60 million over the last month. Okay, that's how much money it's made, which is this little game. So here are some controls where you can do some control mapping. And this is what I was talking about in my requirements. I want you guys to do some control mapping. There's some audio settings. You can see that I've got some tabs in here, right? All of these things are available to you in Unity. You can do these kind of buttons and this kind of stuff. Even I changed my cursor to something else to make it look like a little sword. All right, excellent. That's what I can do here with Unity as well. So this is the thing. I also have credits. I can roll credits here, and it changes the camera in the scene to talk about who are the people that made the game. Iron Gate is made up of these like 5 guys. All right, Iron Gate. Coffee Stain Publishing is the publishing company, right? This is the publishing team, but the guys, the developers who made this thing, are these guys right here, right? Plus additional contributors that helped out with some stuff. There's a composer and stuff, but you see, there's a very small team of people that made this game, guys, right? Guys, this is for a very small team of people. Again, it's been very lucrative for them. All right, I also have a start game. Let's go to start game and take a look at some other user interfaces. I've got this user interface right here, and this allows me to go back to that menu. Again, it's the same menu. I've just controlled my camera. My start, to start the game, I can remove my character. I don't want that to happen. I can make a new character, or I can cycle from one character to the other. I'm also able to look at my character in 3D, all right, which allows me to do this. This is my little Viking guy that I made, right? I got a little particle effect here, and it says select character. This is the character selection sequence. If I go back, you can see I still see him. He's just way down there. And I can't, when I'm in here, I can't seem to select him anymore because I'm in the menu. All right, that's what I've done here. Let's go back to start game. Okay, what about in-game? What does this look like in-game? Let's start and see what that looks like. So when I click start game, again, it moves my camera back. It's the same scene, but now what I have is a couple of things. I have my start game and I can join game. This is online, right? I can join a community. I can make my own dedicated server, or I can just click new to make a new world or start the game. Let's click start game and see what this looks like. Again, this is just a study. I'm not going to play the game here with you guys. It's just a study in user interfaces of a modern game that just came out and it's been pretty popular. And it's using Unity. So you can see that there's some similarities and stuff we can make. All right, a little thing on the bottom right tells us that we're moving. Hopefully you guys can see this. Now you can see the grass. This grass is actually billboarded to me. That's what it is to my camera. And you can see that at the top left corner, I have a up here, I have a little inventory system that's up here. I have an in-game menu that comes up here, right? That's over here. And I have my health bar, which is this way. My health bar goes up and down on the left with things that I need. For example, it tells me I'm hungry right now because it's flashing. So I can bring up my in-game menu. Look, notice that the menu pops in from the top. And the top from this side here, which gives me some information. This is my quest information. This is my inventory system. And on the right, it kind of shows me my crafting menu. I press the tab key to make that happen. So tab key, this kind of stuff comes in on the right. And you can see that I've got several things that I can make with the right components. It tells me the components that are required, right? Different things require different components, right? So pretty straightforward. On the left, you can see that there's some components that are stackable and some components that are not. These items here are not stackable. All right. So kind of exactly what I was talking about before. It talks also about my weight, how much I'm carrying, and also my total armor class, which is 8. All right, cool. So I've got this. And if you look at my world, this is the same game world that you can create yourself to some degree. I can move around the game world, right? And I can, when I select, I got my little reticle in the middle of my screen. And as I move my reticle over an item, it tells me that I can do something with it, like pick it up, right? So I can pick up the item. If I use my mouse button, I can swing and I can do a bit of an animation, right? I can block with my shield, right? And I can do another kind of other kind of attack. So that is the little game that you can that is Valheim. All right, I can run like normal, and I can go into my my stuff. But this is a survival crafting game, and I just want to show you this little part here. I'm just going to go. Notice on the top right, there's a little mini map. So this one right here, this is our mini map. This is what I was trying to get you guys to do, right? I also have some additional information, and this is the one part I don't like about the game, which tells you in real time what you can do to attack or whatever. And it keeps flashing a lot. I think that's one part of the game they need to fix. So, or be able to turn off. All right, so that's one thing I don't like about the game. But otherwise, other than that, I think it's pretty cool in terms of the particle effects, the way it looks, and everything else. I'm just going to go home here. This is my little house that I built, right? And I got a little fire, and you can see that in the fire, it's a massive game. If I press M to show you the world, this is the game world that they've created. It's a massive world, like a really massive world that they've made. And what you can do is, again, you can look at the entire world where I'm at. This is where I'm at right now. And you can see it's literally just another mini map similar to what I've made you guys do in the game. Okay, that's it. So think about the little pieces that I have here in my UI that I want to add in my game. And like I say, the game costs $20 on Steam right now. Hugely popular, an amazing game. For what it is, for early access. And the reason that I'm really excited about it is it's using Unity, and we're using Unity together. And I think this is an amazing opportunity for you guys to make a game that is I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be like Valheim. They get some really talented developers here that have been working to make this game cool. They've got some great lore in the game, and there's other things that can happen, but there's nothing to stop you guys from making something like this with Unity, all right? We need some user interfaces. And I think one of the things we can do to make our user interface better is think about where our health bar is going to be. So I can move my health bar, let's say on the bottom left, just like Valheim. Valheim had their little health bar in the bottom left corner. I want to do the same thing with mine. I want to put mine on the bottom left corner too. So let's bring my health bar. And again, my health bar is this one will be a screen space health bar, right? Something that's going to be in my scene all the time. So again, I'm going to go to my canvas. So notice where it says canvas in my element here. Here it is. And I'm going to go to my prefabs and I'm going to grab my screen space health bar and pull it in to my canvas. Here it is. If I look at my canvas now, and if I go to my screen space health bar, it kind of gives me an idea of where my canvas is going to be. It's pretty big, right? Remember, I can resize the health bar anywhere I like. I'm going to put this on the bottom left-hand side of my screen. This is my screen, right? If I look in the game, that's where it looks, that's where it's going to be, right? So I can put it kind of on the left-hand side, somewhere down here, right? And remember, I can customize this thing any way I like, right? So maybe I'll put a little health text that's down here on the left-hand side, or even health that's on top of this thing. It's totally fine and totally whatever I want to do, I can make it happen. So how do I do that? One thing is I want to make it so that the health bar is anchored to the bottom left corner of my screen. So it doesn't matter how big my screen is going to be, I want my user interface to be responsive, which means I want to change the size of my health bar relative to my screen size. And I also want this thing to be anchored to the bottom left corner of any screen that I use, even a game that is in mobile format. All right. So let's try this out. So what I need to do is on my health bar screen space, I want to go to my rect transform, which is this little thing right here, right? Everything inside the canvas are slightly different than everything else in that they have a little rect transform. And I can select the bottom left corner of my canvas as the anchor point for where this little health bar is relative to. So again, if I run this game now, you can see that I'm going to have a health bar that runs around, right? And if I test the health bar like I've been testing before, and if I press K, so does my health bar go down in health, right? Cool. If I really want to tell you what this is, and by the way, I can use a health bar and I can make it for fuel. I can use it for magic. I can do it for vitality. I can do all kinds of stuff with my health bar. It's just a bar that I can use for any kind of progress that I want to use. But let's make it so that I add a little UI on this as well, right? What I want to do is I want to right click on the canvas and go down to UI, and where it says there's a couple of options. One of them is Text Mesh Pro, right? Let's add Text Mesh Pro. So I'm going to click Text Mesh Pro. It's going to ask me to install a little thing in my Unity project called TMP Import. So I'm going to click Import TMP Assets. I don't want to import TMP examples and extras, just this one. This is going to add additional load to my project. So again, guys, when you put this up on GitHub, make sure you don't include the library folder by having a nice repository git ignore file. All right, cool. I've got my text and it appears here. Remember, I can layer my text anywhere I want. So I can put it on top of my health bar, like so, right? If that's what I want to do. Let's zoom in here to see what my health bar would look like with the new text. So here's my text. And let's suppose I want to make it so that the text is kind of going to start over here, or maybe I want to center it so that it's going to take up my entire health bar. Something that looks like this. Right, so I can kind of put my text exactly where I want it. And if it's a little bit too high, notice on the right, there's some controls for my text object. I can put, it's in the middle. I can make it so that it is centered, right? And then I can change the name of the text to whatever I want. Health bar. Health. And if I play it now, the game, I mean, it's pretty obvious it was health anyway, but if I want to, you can see that it kind of comes up as health. And if I take damage, then even the damage kind of shows up nicely, and it can layer one effect on top of another. I know it's a pretty simple effect, but for people who've never used Unity before, and if you don't know what you can do, you don't know what you can do, right? So this is the first thing. Second thing is I want to add a reticle. So by the way, let's make this thing, let's call this the health label. Health label. That's what we just made, right? We made a health label. And the health label, all text objects have a text input element in here called, in this case, it's health. I'm using Text Mesh Pro because it truly produces the best effects. It gives me an ability for me to use different font assets and a lot more control than regular text. So pretty cool stuff that you can do with it. And the documentation, there's a link to the documentation inside of your PowerPoint. So I kind of talked about the canvas and everything else and screen space versus world space. I talked about that in the PowerPoint. And I also talked about how to get Text Mesh Pro and where to get it and how to learn how to use it. It's right here. And it can be the topic of a whole lesson and a half just to do this. I'm not going to do that with you. I'm hoping that you'll have a chance to take a look and look at all the details. There's also the documentation that's live from the people who originally had made Text Mesh Pro that sold it to Unity because they had made a separate company made it and then Unity bought it. All right, so that's Text Mesh Pro. What I want to do is I want to add in a reticle, just like we saw in Valheim. Valheim had a little reticle, which is a little symbol that was in the middle that can allow me to select objects. That's what we had in the middle. And I want to put the same kind of reticle in the middle of my screen. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. I could make it an object that is a text object and put a little plus in there. That's kind of like the simplest way, the dumbest way to do it. Let's just do it that way. So I'm going to go to Canvas. I'm going to add a new, again, UI element, which is going to be Text Mesh Pro text object. And I'm going to make this a plus. And what I want to do is it's going to be in the middle of my screen. So I want to make it so that it is centered as well as centered. And I'm not even going to change this. This is going to be called the reticle. I think it's spelled reticle. And remember, it's in layer order. So if I want the reticle to be above everything else, I'm going to put it in screen space, right? And we got to be careful if we layer the reticle on top of something else, we may want the reticle to be at the bottom, like where it is right now. So it's layered where it's supposed to be. If I run it now, game, you're going to see that when I run it, I have this little plus that appears in the middle of my screen, similar to what we had in Valheim just earlier. Now, Valheim's is cooler because it's an image, right? It's not like this, but you can see that I have a reticle of, and it helps me out to kind of look where I'm, kind of help me understand where I'm looking. Okay, so that's kind of cool. All right, nice. Excellent. So far, so good. We've added a couple things, right? So I've got this reticle and it's inside my canvas as well as my health bar label. These are good things, right? Let's add additional functionality to my menu, right? So I want to be able to create a menu that comes up to, as an example, that allows me to, kind of load and save and pause the game. All right, let's do that. Let's make a little menu that allows me to do that. Now, by default, Canvas and Unity, if I go to UI, it adds a bunch of other things. It has things like drop-down menus. It has sliders, which we saw before, buttons that we can select, right, as well as input fields and panels. All right. So this is kind of stuff that allows you to do. So let's use a panel. And by default, the panel is like the entire screen. I don't want the panel to be the entire screen. I want to make it so that it is less than the entire screen. So we'll make it centered in the middle. And what I can do is with the panel, I can resize it with the rect tool. So the rect tool allows me to resize the panel make it however big I want. I want to put it off screen, like up here. By default, the source image of the panel is the default that comes with Unity. It's this little background image. And what would probably be smart for me to do is to design my background image somewhere else. Like, for example, inside of an application like Fireworks, right? So this is something that I have from my my health bar. Maybe I can make a panel and I can design it in a certain size. Right now, my health bar is 150 by 30. Let's see if I can design my panel that's very similar to this, you know, kind of in the background. And this will be the panel for my options that I want to put up. And it's going to drop in from the top left. Maybe we can make it even the place that we're going to hold our inventory. Okay. So for now, I'm just going to make this panel, and it's going to be a panel background. So let's make file, new. And I want to think about how big I want to make this thing. So it's going to be at least, let's say, half the size of my screen. If my screen is roughly 800 by 600, right? Oh yeah, sorry. I'll optimize it to a video clip. There we go. How's that? Is that better? So if I want to optimize this for the size of my screen, you can see that if I make a screen size of 800 by 600, then this panel is probably going to be like 400 wide. And the height of my screen is probably going to be at least 300 wide, 300 high. So kind of like a quarter of my screen. All right. Again, just like I've done before, I can add a border. And I already have my border here. So I have this border right here, my rectangle and the other rectangle and then a rectangle and the other rectangle plus my border. I can copy all these things that I already have, copy, and I can go back to my untitled thing and paste them. I want to have the same style is what I'm saying, right? Because I've kind of created the same style with my health bar. Well, why not with my border, right? And by the way, in most programs, these layers, you can name them like border, right? And square, right? So I know what they are. All right, these are little squares that I put on my border. Again, any program would do, it doesn't matter. I'm just using a random program. And what I want to do is I want to size this thing so that it is the right size. But notice that my border grows in proportion to my size. And this is not good. I want to make this back to 5. Make sure that it's 5, something that makes sense for you. These ones can go to the corners as I'm making my little border. And I want a background, right, like we did before. And this background is going to be something I'm going to keep. So something like a light, again, it really depends on the style, a light brown, just like maybe Valheim or something else like that, right? So let's just grab an object that I want to put in, right? There it is. And I can change it to kind of a brownie color that I like. This is the brownie color. I don't need a border for this one though. So let's get rid of the border. So we can make it so that it is no border. This one is what I meant. And if it's too brown for you, and I think it's a little bit too brown for me, let's make it lighten, right? So again, you can choose lighter colors of brown, right? And that's maybe too light, maybe something in the middle, right? Like that. And you can take this and kind of attach it to the object and kind of space it out so that it kind of works into the entire space of the object. There we are. Again, it's 400 by 300 and it's in the front. And what I want to do is I want to layer it in behind. So again, I can send this to back. So again, this is going to be in top. To send it to back, I can literally drag it down here, which will make it go to the back, right? But it really doesn't have much of styling at all. It's just brown with a little border that I have here. So I can have the same kind of coloration that I did with the other one. So this is my little gray bottom. I can copy this and very simply go back and put those over here. And I can grab the one item that I want which is a larger area, and kind of go down to the middle. And again, just going to go down here. And then what I can do is I can move this thing where I want it so it's spaced out properly and stretch it out, right? And the same thing goes with this one. So I can grab this one, pull it in there. And open it up and stretch it out. Again, just trying to keep the same style as I did before. If you really want to, you can go and do the other sides too, just to give that effect. If you want to make it so that the bottom right, it's almost like a fake, kind of like, or a false shadow. As an example, you can do that too. I'm just going to put it on the bottom just to match with what I have in my other thing. And I also want to make it a little bit bigger because, for example, the background may be just a little bit bigger, and the bottom health bar part, which is this part, I want to make that a little bit taller too. All right. Again, some kind of little design that I'm putting in for my health bar on my panel. I can do that. And this is just going to be the panel itself. Again, you can make this more exciting than this. I'm going to save this as a panel file, save as, and we'll call this panel.png. And I'll put this up on eCentennial so you can use it and play with it too. So again, I'm going to go to eCentennial here, and I'm going to grab my panel that I just made. Again, it's really cheesy, and it's not that great, but it's something. And drag and drop it. There it is. You get the panel too. All right, so now what I can do is, now that I have the panel, I can go back into Unity and drag and drop it into my textures. Okay. Sometimes there's a lot of textures, and I have a lot of stuff in here. I have like the stone textures, and I have my minimap textures, and I have my border textures, and I have a bunch of stuff, right? Sometimes I want to make it so that there's folders, subfolders. Like, for example, I want my minimap textures to be together. So let's take my border texture, my enemy markers, as an example, my minimap texture, my mini mask, and all that stuff. And I want to take this and my player marker and put that inside minimap folder. And my enemy material doesn't belong here. It actually belongs inside materials. I was looking for that earlier. See, I lost it, right? Here's my health bar, and I have my health bar textures. There's other ones. I'm going to make another folder called UI. Right, so these are all UI elements. And I can take my health bar, put it in there, as well as my panel, put that in there. And then there's this texture for my objects. And this is like models. So I'm going to say kind of, create a new folder, and we'll say models, and then take all this stuff and drag and drop it into the models. It doesn't hurt anything, but it means a little bit more organization for us. So I can go textures, UI, and then I can see my health bar and my panel. So now when I look at my panel in the canvas, I can drag and drop my panel in here, right? That's what I want to do. But my source image for my panel needs to be modified. So it is a sprite, 2D, and UI. Again, just like we did before, I want to change a couple of items. One of them is this bilinear to point no filter, right? And then I also want to change my compression from normal quality to none, and click apply. Now my panel is a sprite, and maybe if I'm lucky, I can point to it by dragging and dropping. And now you can see this is what it is. I can also set native size, and it'll set the size of my panel to the proportions to the size that I made earlier, right? Okay, just like I did before, I want to pull this panel down when I'm ready. I want to say, hey, here's where I am. And what I want to do is I want to pull my panel down when I want to use it. And then when I'm done, I want to push it up. How do I do that little animation? So there's a couple ways to do this. right? One way is to try and physically move the panel, right? Where I want to move it down onto my screen and back up off the screen. So right when I play right now, you can see that the panel is not visible, right? But it's physically in the screen, right? Like it's actually in my game world. So is there a way that I can make use of the rect transform so I can move the panel physically on the screen from where it is down to, kind of in here? And also, one thing to note is that the position of the panel is relative to screen space, not world space. Okay, so this is a totally different way of moving it. So even though it says width 300 by 400, my position is relative to the anchor point, which is over here. And the other thing is, if I don't make it this anchored to the top left corner of the screen, that means if I have a really wide screen, it won't come in the same spot. So let's make this anchored, first of all, to the top left corner of the screen. So that is where the relative space is. From this point here, this is where my panel this is where I'm getting my coordinates from my panel, 241 and 196. Let's make it even. So something like 200, and then we'll call this like 250 as an example, something off screen. If I went 200 and 200, actually, it's still okay, but then that's kind of really at the corner, right? And I think 250 might just look a little bit better on the x-axis. So 250, but what I want to do is I want to bring it from 200, I want to bring it down to here, which is roughly negative 200. So from 200, I want it to go to negative 200. And then what it's going to look like in the game is this. It's going to pop up. Hey, wait, my panel is like transparent. I didn't really mean to make it that way. Uh-oh. What the heck? What did I do? Right? Because this is how it should look eventually, but this is not what I want, right? Let's see if I can fix it. So, yeah. So the background, which is my rectangle here, it shows as 100% opaque, but these parts are 50% transparent, these parts. And this part is 100% opaque. So why am I getting this part that's showing transparency? Well, it's here in the color. The color is basically showing 100, and it should be 255. That is 100% opaque. Again, this is if I want to make my panel, my little cheesy panel, look like this. All right. Again, not really great, but it's something I made, and I want it to pull it into the screen, and it's got to pull into the screen with some information and pull back out again when I don't need it. Right? So save it. Cool. Well, I got an issue, right? So I want to pull this back from 200 to negative 200. I need panel control, right? And it needs to be attached to this panel itself, right? So this panel can come in, and every time the panel moves, so too does everything else. And this is kind of like my control panel. We'll call this my control panel. Maybe this will be my controls, or it'll be my user interface, or whatever I want, okay? My control panel fly in. So I want to get references to this by adding a script. Let's make my control panel, and this is the last thing we'll do, guys. I'll make my control panel controller, okay? All right, cool. Here's my control panel. It's a panel, which is really an image, has an image on it, right? And it's a game object, but it's a game object that is part of a canvas element, okay? Cool. It has a rect transform, not a regular transform. So some things that are working on it may not work the way you think they're going to work. So I'm going to drag and drop this on. So I have now my script that's part of my control panel is in my control panel controller. All right. Let's go back to that. And what I want to do is on start, I just want to teleport it on screen. So I want to show it, and then I want to move it. All right. So I want to teleport it on screen. But I need a reference to the panel. So I want to say that maybe my panel, right, as an example, it is a game object. But let's go to Unity Engine and UI. And let's see if there's something like that. So using Unity Engine .ui, right? And I want to say that I want to get a public panel. Oh man, there's nothing like that. There's no panel, right? I mean, I've got a bunch of other stuff that say panel, but there's no panel, right? The panel is really just a game object, right? This is my control panel, right? My control panel is the game object. So what if I know that this object that I've connected to is connected to my control panel and it's just a rect transform, right? So that's what it is. This thing here, right, is this. It's referring to the object itself, right? But I really don't need the object, the whole object. I mean, I have my object. I need the rect transform. So this should be a rect transform, right? Is there such a thing? Rect transform. Okay, rect transform is cool. And I'll call this the rect transform. Okay, cool. I like that. And I want to say that the rect transform dot position, right? My rect transform dot position. Let's try position first. That's equal to a new vector3 object. Actually, it should be a vector2 object because it's 2D. And the x coordinate is going to stay the same. So wherever my current transform is going to be the same as it is. But what I want to do is kind of change it to whatever it's going to be, right? So let's go, I'll say that the rect transform dot position dot x is going to remain the same, but my rect transform dot position dot y is going to be at -200. Will this work, right? If I just reassign the position to some new vector. So if I press save and go back up, and if I press play, this is off screen, but if I press play, it should be on screen, right? Nope, it's not. What did it do? It says, the variable rect transform is unassigned. Okay, that's bad. But I said that, well, my position for my rect transform is this, but what about my rect transform itself? I have to say, well, rect transform is equal to get component rect transform, right? I need to do that, right? Yeah, so that's kind of, I need to get the rect transform from the object. I mean, come on. Come on, Tom. You know how to do that. And let's press play and see what happens. And what? I don't understand. And what happened to my health? My health kind of whacked out too. Look at that. I mean, I don't understand. My health moves around. That shouldn't be, that shouldn't do that, right? And my panel didn't move. Where's my panel, by the way? Did it move at all? Well, let's see it in the scene. It's way down here. What the heck? Why did it go down there? It moved, but it didn't move where I thought it was going to move, right? It moved some 1,100 units down from the top, further down. That sucks. So I did access it, but this -200 is like way 200, like below the screen 200. Okay, what about if I said that instead of position, what other things do I have in my rect transform? I have something called local position. Local position says, take my local position and move it. Let's see if that works. And I want to also fix this other problem with my canvas for my health label. My health label really should be kind of, if I want to make it where, if I want to put it where it is, which is right here, right? And now it kind of shifted. I want to move it so it's inside of the health bar screen space. And what I want to do is I want to make it so that it kind of collides with this. And I want to make it so that, just like before, it's going to extend so that's the entire part of my container. All right. And let's see what happens now when I start. Do I see my panel? What? What the heck? Why did it go there? Right? That's not what I want. I thought it was going to go my panel, right? By the way, I'm playing with you guys, right? My panel, I thought it was going to go up here, but it went down in here. Well, even though my local position is, I'm thinking it's relative to my anchor, right? Is there something else that I can use? So let's see if I go to rect transform. Let's see what else I can do with rect transform. This will be, again, the last thing I do. So if I go anchor position, right? That is where my anchor position is. So this is, if I hover over, it says the position of the pivot of this rect transform relative to the anchor reference point. Okay, I like it. Does this mean I can change the anchor position? Well, no. What I mean is that the position that this should be in, right, is my rect transform. First of all, my rect transform position is wrong. This should be like rect transform local position. All right, that's what that should be. Okay. So that is the x coordinate space. Okay. And if I go back and I run this thing again, one thing at a time, right? If I go back so we understand these things, right? Okay, now it's in the right spot, like in the left, but it's way too low. It's relative to my anchor, but below this part, right? So it's here, but it's like way too low. And what happens if I change my screen size? So if I go from this to something like, I don't know, 640 by 480, what does it do then? Right? Like, whereas my health bar works okay. My health bar worked exactly like I expected it to go, right? It's kind of this big, right? But my my scene, if I look at my scene, that's like way down here, right? And it's like many, many units below where it's supposed to be. So what do I do? What do you think is the fix? I mean, I can move my rect transform around, right? I can do stuff. My X position makes sense. And this is a new vector too. That's my local position. What about my here's something else. What about my anchor position? If I say my anchor position is equal to some value, you know, down here, what does that do? What does anchor position do? It's still a vec2, right? But let's see what happens now when I run that. So run, and I say my anchor position ends. Okay, that's interesting. It kind of put it over here at 200 and whatever. What happens if I go to my, go back to free aspect? Well, it kind of did what I wanted it, right? It kind of did what I wanted it to do, kind of. And let's take a look at what it shows in the scene. So in the scene, it kind of put it right here. And if I look here, it says that my X position is, it didn't change my anchor. My anchor stayed what it was, right? My X position stayed at minus 70, and my Y position is minus 200. Minus 70 and 200. Okay. Minus 70? What the heck? That's not what I have this. This is at 250 and 200. Well, I can't have it both ways, my friends. I need to specify exactly where I want it. So if it's going to be 200 and 200, or 250 and 200, I got to specify 250.0f and 200. Let's try that again. Right? So that teleports it exactly there. And if I look actually on the scene itself, you can see that's exactly where I want it. 250 by 200. And I need to use anchor position, which is not obvious. Okay. Cool. One last thing. I want it to start off screen, and I want it to get to that point. I want it to start from off screen somewhere else. So wherever it is off screen. So for example, in the off screen position, it's at 250 and 200, right? And I want it to lerp from 250 to 200 to where I want it to go to, right, by pressing a button. Let's make a button for this where I put my control menu on. I'm just going to use the C key because we're going to put the control. We can use any key we want, but I'm going to say if input.get key down, and I'm going to say key code.c. Then what I want to do is I want to animate my, or move my control panel in place. So I'll say, you know, kind of move control panel down, right? So I'll say that a new private void, I'll say move control panel down, okay? I'm making a function for this because I'm going to maybe do something different here. Move control panel down. When I press the C button, how does it work? I'm going to take the current transform position, right? So where it is right now, and I want to lerp to the new one. All right, so when I say lerp, vector2 has a linear interpolation function, right? So I can say two vectors from some vector to another vector. And what I want to do is I want to save those two positions somewhere. So at the beginning, I'm going to say that private, and I'll call this the we'll call this a vector that is the anchor position. So the vector2, we'll call this that is the off-screen position, right? And then we're going to say another private vector2 that is the on-screen position. Okay? So from off-screen to on-screen. So when I start off, I'm going to start off in the off-screen position, whatever that is. And then what I want to do is I want to lerp from the off-screen position to my on-screen position with some kind of t value, which I'm going to use time.delta time. This one. So what is lerp? Lerp is linear interpolation. It goes from one point to another point and stops when it gets there with some kind of value from 0 to whatever. So time.delta time may not be exactly what I want, but we'll see what happens. And if you want to look up lerp, then you can look it up in Unity. So if I say like vector2.lerp Unity, and again, I know I'm going over time, guys. I'm just going to go a little bit longer and then we're done. So it kind of shows you what it does. The t value from 0 is returns A, at 1 returns B, and anything 0.5 returns in the middle, right? So I want to go to the scripting API for lerp. If I put in lerp in the scripting API, and I say, if I do something like a vector2 lerp, right? It shows me what this is. If I also have a mathf dot.lerp, right? And if I look at mathf.lerp, it's a math function that does something very similar, right? Where I want to go from a vector2 from some value to some other value, where the t value is some value times time.delta time, right? But I want to add a value as I'm going, and this is kind of what I want to do. And if it says if t is greater than 1, then it wants t to stop, right? So t is going to be 0. So it's going to go from 0 to 1. That's what t is going to be. That's the lerping value. And so I don't want to do this. I want some kind of count, to start off and to count me from 0, which is the off-screen value, to 1, which is the on-screen value. All right, so let's start off with we'll make a private timer, which is going to be a float. Okay, and what's going to happen is when I've called the move control panel down, then I'm going to start off and I'm going to say timer. By the way, we're going to say timer starting off at 0. Timer is going to be equal to 0.0f at the beginning. So we're going to start off at 0. And timer, I'm going to say plus equals to time.delta time. Time.delta time, if I can do it properly, there we go. And what it's going to do, this timer is going to be the thing that I want to increment. Timer is going to go from one place to the other with time.delta time. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to start at 0. It's going to keep counting up, right? And I can multiply it by some multiplier if I want to make it faster or slower. I'm going to do that later. Times, we'll say a speed. By the way, these should be public because otherwise they're not going to have any values. And the timer is something I want to see as well for now. And I also want to have a speed, which is a float. So I can vary the speed of how fast this goes. So again, timer, it's timed at delta time times the speed, so I can make it faster or slow. And I want the speed to be something like, I don't know, between 1 and 3. So let's make a range. Again, the minimum float will be something like maybe slower, so 0.1f, all the way to 3.0f. And we want to set up a standard speed of 1. I also want to set my timer to 0 by default, even though I'm going to set it later, just so that we can see stuff. All right, cool. I like it. I like it. So that's what's going to do. It's going to increase the timer. When the timer gets to 1, I want it to stop, though. So I'm going to say this. If the timer, right, and we want to do it beforehand, right? So we can add the timer value later. So it starts off at 0, and then I add the timer, and then it comes back. It's going to keep adding to the timer and changing this value. So if I can say something like, if my timer is greater than 1 is what I want to do, then what I want to say is that I want to stop the timer. So I don't want my timer to increment, right? So that means that I want to put the timer in place, this timer in place here. I want to say that if the timer is less than or equal to 1, then I want the timer to increment. However, if the timer gets to be at 1 or higher, then I want it to stop, right? So if less than 1, good. Else, it's going to be stopped, right? By the way, what I want to do is when it comes back here, as an example, I'm going to say that if the timer is greater than 1, right? Like somehow greater than 1. So if it's an else, so if it's not less than or equal to 1, I'm going to say that the timer then is, well, I shouldn't do this because it's going to mess me up. All right, cool. So that's kind of the way it's going to be it's going to count up, if you will, right? And it's going to go all the way to the end. And I'm going to move my control panel down, and it's going to change from off-screen position to on-screen position. That's great. In the editor, right, when I look at my control panel, I have some values. My timer starts off at 0. My speed is 1. My off-screen position is exactly where it is today, which is at 250 and 200. And my on-screen position is at 250 and negative 200. I made them here like this so that if we want to, we can modify these values later on. And so we don't have to have it always over here. We can put it somewhere else if I need to. So for some control. Awesome. Let's see if this works. So again, it's only going to work if I press the C button, right? That's how it's going to activate, if it works at all. All right, let's go back to Unity and try it out. So I'm running it, and then I press the C button, and then what I should see is the counter counting down, but it's like I'm pressing the C button, and it's the only time that it's going to come down is if I'm pressing the C button, and it's going to slowly come into the scene, right? Which is what I want to happen. And what the heck is going on? Well, it didn't do what I was supposed to do, right? I said that the off-screen position, and I did a vector lerp, right? And this is going to return a vector2 object, which is something that I want to, a vector2 object is what I want to have, but I want to take this rect transform anchor position, and I want to make it equal to this new vector2 lerp, right? From one place to the other. That's one I want to do. And also, get key down kind of only works, I want to activate and deactivate. I want to move down if I press it one time, right? And when it gets to the lower position, When it's there, I want to make it go back up again. So every time I press C, it's going to say that it's moving down or not. So I need some kind of Boolean for this. So I'm going to say that, we'll make a public Boolean, which will say, moving down. We'll say is moving down, and we'll say that that is false by default, right? Or I can say is on screen, is on screen might be better, is on screen. It's false. And when I click it, is on screen is going to be equal to not is on screen. And what I'm going to say is move control panel, right, is going to work if is on screen is true. Then I want to call move control panel down. Okay, this is kind of a simple way of doing it. So this just toggles. The C key just makes it come on and off, just like before, right? And is on screen is not is on screen. It's just going to basically be toggling this on and off, which means I can stop it in midway for now. All right, let's go back to this and try it out. So press play, and we're going to see nothing's happening. But if I press C, then we can see that the panel slides into place. Maybe that panel should slide into place faster, just like we saw in Valheim. So I'm going to increase the speed here to something like 1.5. You can actually type it in, 1.5. And let's try it again, right? So maybe that's not fast enough, 1. So then I can go to C, right? And that's not fast enough. I think that even something like 3 might be the order, right? Like way faster. And maybe 3 is not even enough, because it's got to become way faster than that, right? So C, all right? That's not bad. 3 is pretty good, the speed. And I think even 3 could be made faster. So going back to that knowledge, that thing we just learned about, let's make it so that the top end is 10. So like really fast. And go back to this and try again. So now we can move it down by pressing the C button, right? But if I press the C button again, I want it to go up. Okay? So how can I make that happen? Well, we already have a mechanism for going down. Let's do the same thing, except move it up. So copy paste. We'll say move control panel up. Okay. Move control panel up means that it's going to start in the on-screen position, right? Again, this is assuming that it's going to start from the on-screen position, and it's going to go to the off-screen position, right? And what I want to do is I want to reset methodology, something like that. So if is on screen, then do this. Otherwise, then do that, right? So we'll say else. Move control panel up. If I press it the other way around, right? Very simple mechanism. There's problems with this. But, and also what I want to do is, depending on what happens, when I click onto it the first time, I want to reset the panel, the counter, because right now the counter will go where it's going to go, and it's going to reach 1. And then what I want it to do is I want it to reset again back to normal whenever I click this the first time, right? So that is the problem. So this is where the counter will be reset, potentially. So let's say that, you know what, when I click this, I reverse it, but then the counter has to be set to 0, right? This is a problem, but we'll talk about it. At least it'll work to some degree. All right, and I'm sure you can see the problems. Let's see how it works. If I try this out, and again, if I press play, and if I press C, it's going to go down, and if I press C again, it's going to go back up. So I can press C and C. What if I press it twice? Is there somewhere else that, what if I press it in the middle? Will it stop me from doing that? No, so it's pretty good, right? So this is the panel coming down, dropping down, and coming off. I can put it on. I can also show my mini map, turn it on and put that back up. That's pretty good. If I think that that's not fast enough, let's make it faster. Let's make it go to 5. Like, I think a speed of 5 might even be nicer. And this is like no animation. This is just using a timer, right? So again, 5, it goes up. I can see my control, something that I want to click on or whatever, and I make it go up. Cool. I like it. It's very simple, but it works. Let's save this and put this up on, and this control panel is something that I can use in other places, but right now it's got a off-screen and on-screen, and it's something that I can use over and over again. It's something that I can use as a prefab. So go back to prefabs. I can kind of launch it in there. Now I've made my control panel a prefab that I can use in other places. Okay, but why is the control panel cool? Well, it's really cool in that it can house other stuff. It can have other things like buttons and other information. So for example, if I want to add a button in there, and let's add a cheesy button. So we'll say, let's add a UI. And again, there's different things here. We're going to add a Text Mesh Pro button. There's my button. And we're going to say something like pause. Right? My pause button. And it needs a little bit of styling. We don't have a styling right now for it, but we're just going to use that one for now. And we're going to call this the text inside the button. There's a text inside the button. We can call this pause. Right? So kind of a simple pause button. And when I run it right now, the way it looks is I press C, it comes down with pause. And oh man, what the? I can't see the mouse and it's no good. Why? Well, it's something I did with my character controller, right? What I did was with my character controller, when I click on the interface, I hide my mouse, right? And I don't want my character controller to move when I'm looking at my interface. This is an issue. That's why I brought it up. So remember, I can bring it down, but then I can't do anything with it. Like if I want to click on this, I mean, it's gone, right? So what I want to do instead is in the player controller, right, which is here. Remember what I did? I said that I want to, actually it's inside the camera controller, right, for the player. The player has 2 controllers, right, 2 parts. One part moves it left and right, and the other one goes and moves it around and around. And in my player, I have my player camera. My player camera has a camera controller script. And that camera controller script basically says cursor.lockState is cursor lock mode.locked. And I need to unlock it when I bring it down. But I also want to stop the camera from rotating when I do this. I mean, I don't care, but it's going to look weird. Right, so let's copy this, and I'm going to go over to my control panel, and I want to say that in my control panel, when I initialize it, so when I click on my key down, I want to show my cursor lock state as unlocked. So where it says locked, right? I want to say none. So I say, so the cursor lock mode is none. All right, let's see what it does now when I do that. So run it, and I press this in, and then now when I press it, I can click on the button, but it still does this. So it still moved my camera where I'm looking, but at least I can click the button now because my cursor's not locked anymore. All right. So when I press this panel down, I want the control to be taken away from my my camera. I don't want my camera control to have anything like that anymore, right? So that is inside of my player camera, right? My mini map camera, my player camera again. And I want my player camera's camera controller to be on and off. I want to get a reference to my camera controller. And I can do that inside of my my control panel. I know, guys, I'm running over time. Please bear with me. I'm almost done. So here is my control panel, and I want to get access to my camera controller or my player cam. So again, I'm going to say, hey, player camera. Now, one thing I want to know is that this is called the player camera itself. It says that there's a camera controller. That's what I want. So I want to say, hey, camera controller, this one. I'm going to make a public so I can see it, camera controller, which is going to be called player cam. Just for now. Our player camera is going to be something I want to access, but I want to get a reference to it up here. So I want to say that player camera is going to be I want to find an object with that capability in the scene. So I'm going to say, just like I did last time, I'm going to say game object, well, again, if I want to say find object of type, this is the way I can do it. Find object of type camera controller. And then what that does is it gives me access to the camera controller of my player, right? And all I need to do is when I click the C button to bring it down, I can say that, okay, hey, player camera, I want to disable the controller script. So enabled is equal to false, right? But it's going to be equal to the is on screen or is not on screen. It's going to switch depending on if I'm on screen or off screen. So if I'm on screen, it's going to be whatever the opposite is. So if I'm on screen, it's going to be false. If it's off screen, it's going to be true. So it's going to be not off screen. Whatever the is on screen position is. So if this is true, then it'll be false. It'll be false, it'll be true. Let's see if that works. If I can disable and enable player camera control. All right, so then I do that, and if I press play, again, pretty simple, but I press C, and now, well, I still got camera control. My camera controller doesn't seem to be disabled at all. I need to make this disabled, right? Well, it's on screen, so it's true. It's true. So where it says my player controller is enabled, then what about if it is on screen? Let's try that. I want to disable my player controller. My player controller, player camera is a reference to my camera controller object itself. All right. Let's try that again. Again. Now, look, can't move it at all. Press pause, go back up, and I'm back to normal again, right? So I can move around, but now what's happened is when I kind of put it, I can't lock my thing up again. So this is also, the lock state is something else, right? The lock state is going to be if the is on screen is down, if it's true, right? If is on screen, right? Then I want to do a couple things. I want to say that my is lock state, right, is none, right? So I want to be able to see it. Otherwise, again, this is messy. I want to say my is lock state is locked. So I want to lock it back up again. So I don't want to see my cursor anymore. So when I'm on screen, I can move my cursor around. When I'm off screen, I can't move my cursor anymore. Well, that means I can push this, player camera enabled is on screen. I can also make that specific. So I can say, take this, and when the camera is if my panel's on screen, then my player camera enabled is false, right? And when I'm not on screen, then my player camera controller is true. Okay, that's what I really want. So kind of, let's put this in the right order so we're consistent. So this is kind of on and off. Timer is going to be the same. On screen and off screen is going to be what it is. Let's see what happens now. Okay. So let's run it. Can press C to bring it on. I can click onto it and do whatever, bring it off. I'm back to normal. And I'm also locked up again. I can turn around, press C to bring up the screen, do some kind of options, and bring it back on, and I'm good to go, right? And I can see my thing working the way it's supposed to work. So pretty cool, right? And I've got some rudimentary control, and I mean that, like really rudimentary control over my my camera, as well as my little pause menu that comes up that I can click pause and it'll do something, right? Right now it doesn't pause, and there's nothing that it does that it pauses the game. It doesn't pause the game, right? So here's a question for you before we go. How would I pause the game? What do you think this is a mechanism for pausing the game? What can I do? And it's tricky. It's tricky, right? Because if the game is paused, I don't want a bunch of stuff to work. I don't want my enemies to work, right? Or whatever. I don't want my player to move. I can't move my player. So again, one thing I can do is even if I do this and if I press pause or not, even here I can still move my character back and forth. I can do this, right? But pause should stop everything. Pause should start everything from updating, the entire thing from updating. So this is kind of not impossible to do, but the trick is how to do it. How do I pause the game, right? So one thing is having an interface to do that, and the other thing is actually affecting things. So there's a couple of things to do. One easy way to do it is put everything inside of a game world or level, right? So let's make a container for all the things that I want. So for example, now again, you have to be careful about what this does, right? Pausing the game could effectively just disable stuff, right? So all the scripts can be disabled, all the scripts can be enabled. That's something that I can do, right? And I can put only the things that I want to be that are pausable inside of kind of some kind of controller. So let's do that. So I'll say kind of make a new empty object. We'll call this pausable objects, pausable, right? And inside of pausable, I can put anything inside here that I want pausable. For example, the enemies. So this enemies I want to put in there, right? And I also want to put my player in there too, right? My player can be pausable. He shouldn't be able to move, or they shouldn't be able to move at all either. Anything else that I want in here, I can also make that pausable, right? Now be careful, right? What we put in here. So again, what I want to do is a couple things I can do. I can turn them off. So literally like turn the objects that are here, anything that's in the pausable state, I can disable, right? I could do that. Or I can look at enemy, all the scripts that are being run, enemy behavior or player or the player behavior or anything like that, I can disable. Okay. And then I want to enable it. If I click pause, right, that means I have no control. It's completely paused until I click pause again, right? Disabling it, the actual object, right, as an example, actually hides it too, right? So, you know, again, what you want to do is you could have a series of scripts that you add in here that you want enabled and disabled. So what you can do is, instead of doing what we just did, let's make a script that does that. So say create a new C# script, and we'll call this, you know, kind of a pausable script. Again, this would be the game controller as well. All right, but I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I want to make a list, right? A public list of type, and I want to make it of type mono behavior. So we're going to call this scripts. Okay. So if you think about this, I have the ability to tag each of the scripts that are in the pausable thing here. Right now, there's no scripts, right? But what if I say that I want to add as many as I want? Let's say I want 3 of them. And I want to select certain things. Like, for example, if I take my my enemy, right? If I drag and drop my enemy, it gets my enemy behavior, which is kind of cool, right? So enemy behavior gets dropped in there, and as well as my player behavior, right? So all of those 3 scripts are there. Not the entire player, but just the mono behavior scripts. And the top level ones, by the way. Right? So the ones that are in the here, enemy behavior, or here, or here. So that's impossible. And what I can say is when I click the pause button, then I want all the pausable scripts, everything in the list of scripts, I want them all to be disabled. So let's say we'll make a public void method that's, pause. Okay. And again, you can attach this method anywhere. And what I want is I want to loop for each script in scripts. I want to say that the script that I'm accessing is set enabled is equal to false, right? And I also want to be able to unpause, right? So there's a couple ways to do this, right? One way is to say, is it paused or not? So is the game paused? Public bool is game paused. And this is something you can do. And by default, you can set that is game paused is equal to false. I don't want the game paused. And then basically what I'm saying is I want to toggle pause. So instead of pause, let's toggle pause. Toggle pause. So I'm going to say that, and whatever it is, I'm going to say that, for example, if it's paused, is game paused is equal to not is game paused. So whatever it is, it's going to be not. And what I want to say is that if it's paused, false, then it's going to be whatever is in here, is game paused. So again, my thoughts are it's probably going to be not is game paused. Whatever it's not is the opposite is what's going to happen. All right, and that's going to be every time I toggle pause, right? In order for me to toggle pause, I'm going to just going to make this system serializable. And again, I don't have to attach this to an object, but I am right now. I don't need update because I don't need that to happen, but I need to toggle pause somehow, right? Whenever I click the button, I'm going to toggle pause. I'm going to go through each of the scripts that are loaded and pause all those scripts or unpause all those scripts, but not actually delete anything. And the way to do that is inside of the button, there is a onClick method. I can add a script, and what I want to do with the script is an object that has a script attached to it, right? So for example, the object is going to be my pausable. My pausable object, when I click onto it, I can access the pausable script, and I can say toggle pause. So that toggle pause is going to, when I click the button, it's going to change the game pause mode to either I'm on or off. Let's try this out. So I want to bring on the script, and I'm right now they're coming, and if I click pause, that should pause the game, right? But it doesn't. So let's see what it does. So if I go to my pausable, if I click pause, it does turn this on and off, right? Look at that. So it does turn the game pause on and off. But does it turn the enemy behavior off, right? So enemy behavior is off, which means it doesn't have a transform, right? And if I'm off, can I move? Well, me, I can't move. I'm pressing the buttons. Press pause off, right? Then that I can move again, right? But I'm paused. And if I pause myself, then I can't move at all until I unpause myself again, right? Right? I'm unpaused, the enemy's unpaused, right? But what happens if I go over here and the enemy wants to find me? Can I pause the enemy by pressing this and click pause? Is that going to, it shuts the enemy down, but, and it shuts me down, that's for sure. I can't move at all, but the enemies keep moving towards me, even though the enemy behavior is off. Why is that? Well, because they've been given, the enemy behavior basically doesn't stop the enemies. The enemy behavior turned off my, the ability for it to look around, right? So it's just a fix, isn't it? Like it's just like a really simple way of doing it. This pausable behavior stuff that I made, right? So what I want to do is any mono behavior is what I'm tagging in there. Any mono behavior, and the AI is not a mono behavior. It is a script that is of top. I've typed nav mesh agent. So I need to kind of go through those as well, right? So that's a thing. So I can kind of go through those, and let's suppose I have, well, not just a list of scripts, but all of nav mesh agents that are disabled as well, right? So not just me, but all navigation, any kind of thing that makes movement happen or whatever. This is pretty long, right? So nav mesh agents, and it's going to add Unity engine here as well. So I can make that, I can call that like AI or agents. So all the agents are going to be disabled too. I want that. And I can do the same thing. I can go for each one, right? For each, agents and agents. I want the agent to be enabled or disabled depending on what I'm doing. Okay, that's a lot, right, to do twice. So, and then I got to modify my pausable. I'm just putting this out there to think about this. We're going to handle this next time. But how do I undo? How do I add a how do I add agents in here? So I want to add a couple of agents, and that's a lot. Imagine if I had like 50 of these in here. I'd have to specify each one of them. That's pretty crazy. And player doesn't have it, so I can't do that. That's good, right? But I do have enemies that have that. So there's one, and there's the other one. So that will go through, and I can find enemies or agents, any kind of script, right? And I can pause it or unpause it. Let's see if that works now. When I do it, so I can run, and then I want to pause the game. I can click C and pause. And now I can't move. Nothing can move. It's paused. And when I click pause again, it starts and it stops and it starts and it stops. And it'll start the agents. I can't even move myself. And this is a real stopgap measure for turning it on or off, right? One challenge is that even I have control over my other things as well, right? So notice I'm able to move, no problem. But my controller is not unpaused, right? So is game pause is true? I don't want it to be true, right? I want it to be false, but I can move around somehow. That is not right, guys. So that is a bit of a trick, things that I have to modify later on. For now, though, I think this is pretty good. It gives me a mechanism to bring down a panel. And the thing is, I should not be able to pull up the panel. If the panel goes back up, as an example, then the game should be unpaused, right? Because that's the panel. So I can pause the game and bring it back up. In fact, maybe I don't even need a button, right? When I press the panel down, it's paused. When I press the panel up, it's not paused. You know, that's how simple it can be. Okay, I'm using the C button, but I can use any panel I want. So for example, my panel controller, right, as an example, instead of the C button, which makes no sense, let's use the tab key, right? So anytime I click the tab key, then that's the way I pause the game, right? So again, if I run it, then I can bring the panel in, right? I'm locked anyway, and then what I can do is I can pause the game, and then I shouldn't be able to, if I do this, then I should unpause the game automatically, right? So that's something that I got to be able to trigger. So that is something that I need to get access to, and which means that I have to access the pausable behavior from my control panel. So my control panel controller, I have to get access to my pausable behavior. Let's do that. So I'm going to say that public pausable behavior, right? We'll call it pausable. And I want to get a reference to it in the start. So I'm going to say pausable, right? Pausable is equal to, and I want to find the pausable behavior in the game. So get component or find objects of type pausable. So I get access to it, right? And what I want to say is when I bring my my controller up, when I bring my controller panel up, then I want to say that if my game is paused, so if pausable.isGamePaused is true, then I want to say that pausable.isGamePaused is equal to false. Okay. So let's see if that works. And what does that do? So if I press tab, and I pause the game, if I bring it back up, then it should start everything off again. It didn't quite do that. Let's do that again. What I meant is if it's paused, if the game is paused, and if I bring it up, my panel goes up, then I want the pausable to toggle pause. I want to eliminate it again. Let's see if that works. So I got to also go through everything. Now I can just say unpause. I got to just toggle it again, right? So let's go back. And again, I got my panel. I bring it down, see if I see my enemies, and I pause them. And if I bring my panel up again, they should be unpaused, right? And that's how it should work. Otherwise, I'll have some weird functionality happen, right? So I'm here, right? And let's say I'm over here. They're going to come at me. And if I pause the game, awesome. But as soon as I take my pause away, then, you know, they're back. So I don't have to click unpause again. And that's it. For the lab, what I want you to do is I want you to show your panels. So the ability for you to do what we did so far today, you should have your, you should be able to see your enemy health bars work. I should be able to pause the game and stop the game and start it up again. Notice I can't move at all anymore whatsoever. If I unpause the game, you can see that this starts, right? And if I take this away, also, I can move again. Okay, pretty cool. That's it for today. So again, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to go up to Unity Collab and say something like added control panel. That helps me pause the game and not pause the game. And as soon as this is done, I'm going to save the scene. I'm going to save the project, exit out of here, and then push this to GitHub. And I know it's a longer session, guys. I'm so sorry, but it is what it is. So I'm going to say git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say added control panel. This can be used for a lot of other stuff like your inventory system. You can use it for anything else you want to show and hide, and you can add other controls in there that do very similar things. All right, questions before we go. Okay, before we go, just a reminder again that when we look at our schedule for next week, in terms of what's due, Lab 5 bonus is due Wednesday, and Assignment 1 Part 3 is due next week, so week 7, right? So we're sitting at week 5. It's due week 7 on Sundays. We still got lots of time. So look forward for next week. We're doing post-processing, color grading next week, animation, how to do animations, and particle systems. Those 3 things we're going to handle next week. Any questions before we go? All right, guys, thank you so much. That's it for me. I've recorded a very long time. Thanks for people that are watching online. Take care, and we'll see you soon next week. I'll record again on Monday. For those people here, thank you so much for waiting.